Reading, Son's Heir, Death's Guardian 2, A Hero's Peril by Engineer Forever. Link to the story in the description.
Disclaimer, I don't own Naruto or Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Reading, Son's Heir, Death's Guardian 2, A Hero's Peril 29. Talia Grace was pissed. Big surprise. Hera rolled her eyes, getting Talia to glare at her. Wait. Apollo cried out, we're starting with Talia? What's wrong with that? The hunter in question asked, sounding irked. But, the cliffhanger. Oh, the author is such a dick. No. A double dick. Apollo. Hestia frowned sternly. I'm sorry, but he is. The sun god whined. She sent a bolt of lightning at a Drakini, the snake-like woman hissing as it avoided the blast. The daughter of Zeus was persistent, though, and a bit crafty. That wasn't the case prior to the quest for Artemis, still isn't. Percy said. Shut up, wethead. Nah. Talia was a for sure daughter of Zeus, point weapon at enemy, fire lightning, boom, problem solved. Well, that's true. Poseidon admitted, glancing at his younger brother, who glared at him. He did not do that for everything, only most of the time. Ever since she and Naruto became a couple though, her fighting style changed. Talia was more efficient than ever with her spear, nearly an ace shot with a bow. Those last few centimeters to dead center would be conquered perfectionist? Nico questioned. I try to be. Talia huffed, it was important to be good at your trade, and she could recreate an attack that was created by the, arguably, goofiest of her immortal half-brothers. I'm not goofy. Apollo waved off and pulled out a picture of a man-dog, he's goofy. Hilarious. Artemis told him dryly. I try. The Rasengan. The wind gathered in her palm as the Drakini came in close to impale her with the spear in its hand. Talia let a grin quirk up and she brought the condensed ball of rotating air to the snake woman's face. It was like using a grinder on metal, only after a half second, the metal went flying, taking down at least 8 trees as it did. Ouch. The demigods said with a collective wince. Talia smirked even wider, the ball still going in her hand, and impulsively charged it with her static. The ball started to grow, and alarmed, Talia tossed it at the nearest enemy. That Laestrygonian giant didn't need its head anyway, right? I just made a sticky bomb. Talia said, looking at her hand and then out to the forces that were charging at the camp's defenses. Halo for the win. Leo whistled in approval while Talia was thinking about learning to do that now, too. She bounced into action, a gleeful smile on her face. This battle was so over. Fear the stickies. Apollo cried out, those got him every damn time when he played online. Always right in the head after he spawned. Percy Jackson was determined to win. Damn right. The son of Poseidon grinned. He scowled as he pulled his sword out of the Drakini's stomach with a jerk. The campers were barely holding out. He just helped Juniper and Grover douse Juniper's burning tree and was cutting through the waves of enemies, mostly monsters so far. Of course that's going to change. Ares grinned as Percy frowned. That was to change, as an enemy demigod ran at him. His name was Todd, unclaimed, or a minor god's kid, and took residence a few years back at Cabin 11. He'd been there when Percy went on his lightning bolt quest. He was gone the year after. Percy Jackson. I'll be a hero to the cause if I kill you. Todd said. He raised a nasty-looking sword that looked like something out of Blackbeard's arsenal. It was curved and jagged at the top, looking like the definition of evil sword. Eager little whelp, isn't he? Ares snickered. Riptide clanged against the new sword and Percy's green glared into Todd's piercing blues. They were hardened and ready for battle, determined to kill. Todd pulled back and slashed at Percy, the son of Poseidon stepping back and avoiding it. Todd continued this, using different methods to attack with each slash and swing of his sword while Percy either deflected or dodged, trying to keep from actively engaging in battle with enemy half-bloods. Boo! Blood! Give us blood! Ares, enough! Hera told him, getting her ruthless son to whine. Stop running from me! Todd said, looking very upset at the thought. He pulled back and his sword separated into 2. Percy had to gape at that for a moment. Dual-wielding swords wasn't unheard of in spars, but it was for a moment. This kid was swinging like crazy, practically dancing with his swords as he attacked Percy. Like some crazy kung fu movie. Leo said, with Frank nodding in agreement. Finally Todd swept Percy's feet out from under him after he failed to get a cut across Percy's neck. Percy landed on his back with a grunt. His hand holding Riptide was stepped on, Todd holding the 2 swords like scissors at Percy's neck. Oh no, Annabeth looked worried while Percy himself was gaping at the situation. The night is mine. I will kill you and my father will realize that he should have claimed me long ago. Not ignored me just because I wasn't bulky like the others. Todd said, and Percy saw who the teen's father was from the look in his eyes. Ares. The gods turned to Ares, who just shrugged. He's a shrimp. He said in an uncaring tone, the punk already picked his side. So the god could care less. Todd had his cruel and sadistic smile and oily black hair. That was it though. Everything else was pretty average. Now die and bring us victory. He talked too much. Athena pointed out knowingly. Pass. Percy said, pulling his free hand out from under Todd's foot and punching up, right between the legs. Go Percy. Talia said with a nod of approval to the move. The males all crossed their legs as they looked warily at the water boy, who was in shock that his other did such a low move. Todd's eyes crossed and he stumbled back. Percy brought Riptide up only to graze Todd's face, but his aim was lower than he expected. Riptide sliced Todd's throat. Nice. Ares grinned as he got some looks. What? Your son? Hermes pointed out. What? He's a traitor. Unlike you, Speedstick, I don't weep over my traitorous kids. Oh, you asshole. Ares just chuckled. The son of the war god was clutching at it, his swords fallen to the ground next to his legs. The blood covered Todd's hands and Percy felt it sink in. The death of another, one of them, was on his hands. And cue the trauma. Apollo pointed out while Percy was frowning since he never really killed someone in that fight. He watched the life leave Todd's eyes, staring at the body before scooting away. Get up. Mark, another son of Ares, said as he hoisted Percy to his feet. Good kill. Now let's find another giant. That's my boy. But, he was. It doesn't matter who he was. Mark said coldly. He's the enemy. You killed him. End of story. Exactly, Jackson. So man up. Ares grinned. You should be happy, you finally became a man. So he and Annabeth finally did it? Apollo asked, getting some snickers and outraged looks from the couple and a few of the elder gods. No. They exclaimed with red faces. Damn it, Hermes frowned, the bet was still on. Percy didn't like that. Todd was a demigod who just wanted to be accepted for who he was. To be acknowledged by his father. It was understandable why he was rebelling, especially given Ares' violent tendencies, but he didn't have to die. Yes, he did. Get over it. That's war. Ares shrugged. Percy let Todd's name etch itself into his mind as he numbly ran off to fight another monster. You never forget your first, Athena said and cut Ares off before he said something else. Kill, first kill you pig. Aw. Ares pouted. He had a good one for that. Annabeth Chase was planning. Typical. All her friends smiled along with the girl in question. Aim for the legs. Malcolm said next to Annabeth, his sword slicing through one of the Drakini's snake-like trunk of a leg. The monster fell to her side and her head was swiftly sliced off. She collapsed into golden dust, along with several others of her kind felled by Cabin 6's members. Athena was beaming in pride as her children fought. Annabeth drove her dagger into the side of the Drakini she faced, quickly pulling it out and slashing it deep across the left leg. The Drakini cried out in rage as it fell to the ground, allowing Annabeth to stab it in the head. She pulled her dagger out and sheathed it, reaching into her pouch for throwing knives. She tossed them at the archer, aiming a fire arrow at the trees where the Dryads and Apollo's cabin were perched. Save them, Annabeth. Apollo cried out. His kids weren't fireproof, well, most of them weren't. It hit his hand, making him drop his bow to the ground. An arrow came from the trees and hit him square between the eyes, Annabeth watching as the body slumped to the ground. Annabeth looked to the shooter, spotting Lee Fletcher draw another arrow and take another enemy demigod out with an arrow to the back, most likely piercing a lung. Nice one, Lee. Apollo nodded at the shot. She threw a knife at the demigod's head, mercifully killing the poor girl so she wouldn't die slowly or in pain. Annabeth frowned ever so slightly, saddened that her other ended a life, but knew it was needed. The weight fell in her pouch once more and she pulled two more knives out, flipping them around in her hand as she turned to the other direction, throwing them at the two Drakini, nailing both in the eyes. Annabeth Chase was planning, but she was also thinking. The ways this battle was changing herself and her friends was massive. Of course, it's war. Athena said, her tone was cold, but it held a note of sorrow as well. There were enemy demigods, fellow humans, fighting against them this time. Not a mechanical bull or a monster. She died a little inside when she threw that knife. She shouldn't have had to end that girl's life. And it's all Castellan's fault. Ares, I swear. Tell me I'm lying, Apollo. The sun god looked between his brothers. I plead the fifth. Lame. Ares snorted as Hermes slumped. Gray eyes turned to steel as Annabeth decided that she would never have to make that choice again. Go Annie. Talia smiled for her friend, proud of her while the blonde heard her and smiled for Talia's support. Nico D'Angelo was tired. He summoned a horde of dead warriors. Some were deceased US soldiers, others were Spartans. Ares smirked to his uncle, "You're welcome." Bah, the Lord of the Dead waved it off, even if they were some of his best melee warriors. You name it and he probably called them from the grave to fight. His sword was halfway deep into a Drakini's gut when a bullet grazed his shoulder. Nico turned and froze at the sight of several skeletons, larger than the ones he made, aiming their weapons at him. Finally. Nico grinned, "Time to lose these jerks." What are you doing?" Nico asked. The skeletons hissed at him, taking aim with several weapons. "Betrayal," Leo said in a deep tone, getting pushed by Nico for it. One stepped forward, holding a large Bowie knife and a M16. The skeleton chattered at him. "You're going to kill me?" Nico said, his eyes narrowing at the declaration. No, you're not. You're going back. Back, to the future," Apollo said with a dramatic point. "No," Hades said flatly. "Yeah, sorry," Apollo said, his head hanging. "That was terrible." The skeletons just took aim, ignoring him. "Stop ignoring me. I am a son of Hades," Nico said. He spun his sword around and stabbed it down into the dirt. The earth rose up, crushing around the skeletons with guns. Only the skulls were visible and they were all packed together like sardines. "Nicely done, Nico." "Thanks, Dad." Nico pulled his sword out of the ground and brought it up over his shoulders. "And I said, go back." He swung his sword and the skeletons turned to gold dust, being absorbed into his sword. Nico stumbled, using his sword to steady himself. He huffed and puffed before smirking. "Hope Dad rips you all a new one." "Oh," Hades smiled, "I very much will." Leo Valdez was having a blast. "I try." Leo shrugged. "Down goes the ugly monster," Leo said with a cackle. He was using a crossbow with a design that he stole from that Hugh Jackman movie. The one with Dracula and the werewolf in it. "Nice choice." Apollo nodded, always a good one in his opinion. "Thanks." The pyro grinned. He loaded a new clip and primed the crossbow. "Get some," he said, firing rounds every second at the giants. He took 2 down so far, but it cost him 2 clips for each. He wanted to find a weak spot that would take less arrows to bring it down. One of the giants came around with his club, bringing it up over his head. Leo jumped and rolled out of the way, running into his friend Michael. "Ready to do this?" Michael asked, preparing a VY staple arrow. "You know it, dude," Leo said with a grin. "Aw, look at the little tag team." Hermes snickered, it was funny to see. The giant roared at them and brought his club up. Michael fired the arrow at the giant's hand, successfully hitting the 30-foot monster in the ring finger. The club flew up as Leo fired at the giant's chin. The giant shrunk slightly to 20 feet and Leo nailed it under the jaw with the second half of his clip. It dissolved into golden dust and Leo cheered. "Sweet. Leo. Move," Michael said, pushing himself and his friend out of the way as the club came down. Leo landed with a grunt, his crossbow landing next to him with the empty clip popping out. He gave Michael a glare, but the words died on his tongue. "Aw no." Apollo frowned, Naruto's prophecy, 2 brothers. Leo himself looked upset, sad for his other. Michael was pinned from the midsection down under the massive club, blood was being coughed out of his mouth. The son of Apollo looked up at his fellow black sheep and grinned, his teeth chipped and caked in blood. "Idiot, should've, rolled." "No," Leo mumbled. Mike, Leo said. "Leo, don't let them take the camp," Michael said with his last breath. His head fell and his eyes shut for the last time. Leo stared at the corpse of his friend, who was there 1 minute and gone the next. It wasn't like TV or movies or books where there's this whole dramatic moment between 2 friends. Michael was there and then he wasn't. Like flipping a switch. It's never like the movies. Hades snorted. "Honestly, it was such a lie. I'll stop them," Leo said, his hands clenching into fists as tears filled his eyes. He got to his feet, his fingers tickled with flames. "Flame on," Hephaestus said with a frown for his son. He was breathing heavily, eyes landing on the nearest monster. "I'll stop all of them." Leo Valdez then became a blast of fire. "Damn right." The son of fire muttered darkly. Piper McLean was feeling so many things at once it was hard to describe exactly what she felt. "Take your time, sweetie." She deflected the blade of the older demigod she faced against with her dagger from Zephyr, using Katropus to slice along the side of the sword using demigod. He crumpled to the ground on his knees, quickly fighting back to his feet and trying to stab Piper while one hand put pressure on the wound. Go dual-wielding Piper. Leo cheered as Jason nodded. Nice form. He told her. Thanks. Piper didn't know this boy, but she knew he was going to cause trouble later on. She prepared herself to deliver another blow when a cry of pain got her attention. Piper looked to the right where one of the sons of Dionysus, Pollux she thinks, was fighting another demigod. Piper's ADHD caught movement and she jumped back to avoid being slashed by her current foe. She turned to Pollux. Pollux. Switch. I'm Castor. The twin groaned. Dionysus straightened up at this, edging to his seat. Worry on his face. Breaking away from his fight and sliding back, turning and bringing his sword down to slice Piper's former foe just as he rose to strike her. Piper in turn used her daggers to impale Castor's enemy in the sides as he went for the swinging decapitation. Nice kill. Ares whistled. Now that was what he was talking about. In another life, that would have marked the end of the son of Dionysus. As it were, the would-be victor was stabbed through the chest by Castor as Piper pulled her daggers back. Dionysus let out a sigh, happiness in his eyes at the thought of Castor alive in another place. The two panted, Castor favoring his arm with a wince, before Piper spoke. You should get that arm looked at. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Castor said. Want to give me a hand with that? Sure thing. Piper said, running with him back to the medical tent. Piper might not know what she's feeling at the moment, but she knew that she wouldn't let a fellow demigod die. Miss McLean, Dionysus said, getting her name right, thank you. He said sincerely, making the demigoddess nod. No problem, Mr. D. Kakashi was distraught. He pulled his hand from another snake woman and sighed. This was way too easy. He deflected a demigod's blade that was swung at him from the left with his sword and stabbed the poor girl through the throat with a kunai. Ouch, it sucks for an adult to have to kill a kid. Apollo shook his head. Artemis frowned at the death of a maiden, but it was going to happen in this battle, it was just sad to see. Pulling out and murmuring a soft prayer for her soul as her body crumpled to the ground. It was like fighting enemy Janan in the Third War all over again. Only this time, he was the older one. Lucky. Ares whined, fighting in a third war, damn it, they were still at World War II. And that was decades ago. Damn that Luke kid. Hermes frowned at that. Why couldn't anything just be clean for his soul? Like zombie ninjas. Hades snorted, zombie ninjas? Please, you'd have to be nuts to think something like that up. He would rather be fighting undead hordes of old shinobi than kids with little to no, to him anyway, actual combat training. Wow. That's sad for Kronos' forces, not being up to standard for a ninja. Ares shook his head. Shame. Athena said. Kakashi sighed and tossed another kunai at a distant snake woman. Well, at least he could easily focus on something else that deserved his ire. Like monsters. Frank nodded in agreement, great stress relievers. Kushina was infuriated. These monsters thought they could take her stepchildren's home? What's this? Zeus questioned. She is for her stepchildren, well, never going to happen. His wife told him, making him frown. Darn it. Kill her idiot of a husband's kids? Kill her baby? And get away with it? Hell no. Show 'em how it's done, babe. The sun god grinned, his wife was awesome. Rot in the underworld. Kushina said, chains of pure chakra exploding around her and impaling three giants. The chains coiled up and around, acting like a sadistic form of torture, before crushing the giants. Such a good employee. Hades sighed. He wished he had more help like that. It would certainly ease his workload. An arrow was shot at her and Kushina drew her sword, slicing the arrow down the middle and causing it to take out two demigods running at her from the other direction. Okay, that was amazing. Hazel whistled, the other demigods nodded in agreement. The archer, a young boy with pale blonde hair, looked at her with blue eyes and had her pausing for a moment. She saw sunny blonde and vibrant blue, whisker marks adorning his cheeks. Poor dear. Hestia frowned as Hera gave the red-haired woman a slight look of understanding. Why are you doing this? Kushina asked him. The boy said nothing, quickly drawing another arrow. Trying to kill you it seems, how rude. Demeter said, frowning. Kushina closed her eyes and formed a few seals with her free hand. Doten, Doryuso, Earth Release, Earth Flow Spears, there's that Earth element. Hades smirked as Poseidon pouted since the woman used to use water. Jerk. The archer gasped, his bow and arrow dropping to the ground as a large spike protruded from the ground, impaling him through the chest. Now that's a nice kill. Ares grinned, his blood pumping for this, finally. Some killing, this was like his favorite chapter, of all time. Kushina released the technique and let the boy's body fall to the ground without another word. She shuddered and then walked away, trying to banish that image from her mind. Any mother would. Hera nodded, getting a snort from her smith's son, making her scowl at him for doubting her words. Naruto was in pain. Finally. Apollo exclaimed. About damn time. Python was kicking him around the clearing. He kept letting Naruto heal and go for the first attack, but would avoid or block and beat Naruto back into the dirt. Wants to beat him around a bit, it seems, make it hurt. Ares chuckled as Apollo was glaring at the image. This monster was ancient and strong. Stronger because Naruto's arrows weren't as effective against it, the tips being bronze barely scratching him, and his bow was knocked out of the clearing in the midst of one hand-to-hand scuffle. As hideous as he looked, Python was definitely smart in having a human shell to protect him from celestial bronze. Cheating bastard. Apollo frowned, and don't defend it, Herm. I wasn't going to. The thief god whined, seriously, one time, okay, a few times he supported it, but still. Come on. Python said with a roaring laugh. Where's all that bravado you had when you were fighting this boy? That power? I thought you were the heir of Helios. Get up. Let's get synced already. Helios said, trying to coach Naruto. Fail. Ares snorted. Don't you think I haven't tried? Sasuke must have memorized how my chakra flow looks when we do that. Naruto thought back, pulling Eclipse out and holding it defensively. Then use the flash bang. Spam clones. Do something. Helios said. Anything. Percy cried out. I'm working on it. Naruto said in return, getting an amused laugh from Python. Is that the voices in your head talking, or are you just psyching yourself up? The dragon asked with his crocodilian smirk still in place. I've learned much in my time observing the world, boy. The one thing I mastered is how to best the Soroktanos at his specialty. Beat him down before he can get the first strike in, and you boy share the same style. I'll be sure to remember that. Oh, screw off, Ares. Of course you're more of a predator. You play with your food. Now tell me. Naruto doubled over Python's knee as it embedded itself in his gut. Python then smacked his interlocked hands into Naruto's spine, making the blonde drop to the ground. Python rolled Naruto onto his back, bringing his foot up and slamming it down hard onto the dented chest plate. The blonde cried out and Python gave him a sadistic grin. How do you like being the prey? Anyone else a little scared? Hazel asked. Yeah, we all are. Piper nodded in agreement with Leo. This was messed up. Get off. Naruto ground out. He raised Eclipse up to stab Python in the thigh, but the draconian human grabbed his hand, crushing it in his grip. Now. Python said, smirking. He pried the sword from Naruto's hand, increasing the pressure going into the blonde's chest as he did. He held the Stygian sword above him, examining it in the moonlight. Fascinating, much like his own project, only designed for defense rather than slaughter. I think you might have even given him the idea. Say what now? Jason blinked in confusion. What are you talking about? Naruto asked. He screamed as the sword was shoved into his other arm slowly. Ooh, that's going to sting. Ares winced and laughed slightly. That's a surprise for another day, my boy. Python said with a smirk. He crushed Naruto's hand in his own. Besides, you have more important things to worry about right now. Do it now. I can barely focus on healing my broken bones. Naruto, you have to do something. Listen to the Titan God, kid. Apollo was frowning for his son, worried greatly. Right, okay, oh gods, it hurts already. Naruto thought. He grit his teeth and peered through one eye to glare at Python. Are you prepared to die? Python asked. This will be my only offer for a quick death. I have a question. Naruto asked. Python blinked and his smile seemed to widen. He nodded and Naruto hacked before he spoke again. Have you ever? Yes? Come on boy, speak. Tell me your final words. Python said, his smile more sadistic than even Hades on a good day. Maybe. The god of the dead commented, eyes scrutinizing at the image. Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight? Naruto asked. Classic Batman reference. Apollo whistled, nice one. It was okay, Artemis said as Apollo snickered since his twin actually liked that scene. Python blinked, his mouth opening to form the question, but Naruto didn't give him the chance. Solar flare. Who? The kids cheered for Naruto as the gods nodded at the move. Arg, you little shit. Python said, stumbling back as he rubbed at his eyes. Little shit stain. I'll devour your entrails. Gah, damn it, that hurts. Someone's angry. Frank whistled. Naruto looked at his hand, It wasn't broken, but the fingers were dislocated. He groaned. This was going to suck so much. He grit his teeth and formed a fist, his fingers snapping back into place and making him groan. He reached over, grabbing Eclipse and pulling it out of his arm. Naruto dropped his sword and as best he could with one arm, pulled his flak jacket off so he could get his chest plate off. Right now it was more of a hindrance than help. The golden armor fell to the ground with a clang and Naruto coughed, able to fully breathe once again. Downside to damaged armor. You'd know that more than most. Shut it, cripple. Ares sneered at his full-blooded brother. He got to his feet just in time to take a punch to the face, sending him back to the ground. Stupid snake. Apollo glared. You little fucker, I was going to kill you quickly just to get a point across, but now I guess I'll have to settle for putting you in your place first. Python said, snarling at him. His hand was pulled back once again before delivering another punch into Naruto's face, knocking a tooth out. He must die. Aphrodite cried out. Ruining that perfect smile. The fiend. There goes that molar. Naruto said with a groan. Python reached down and grabbed Naruto by the neck, lifting him up into the air as he squeezed. Naruto's hands gripped his arms, trying to pry him off his throat. The blonde spat blood onto the Python's human face. Die. 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 Python said, the reptilian infuriated with being humiliated in such a manner. Issues? Hades questioned. Most likely. Zeus nodded. Been there. Naruto choked out. He clapped his hands on either side of the draconian human's head, his thumbs pressing into Python's eyes. Done that. Nice one, kid. Ares said with an approving chuckle. Python cried out, his pain sounding like a combination of a dragon's roar and a human's yell. Naruto continued to press until there was a crack and Python let him go, stumbling back to claw at his eyes. They would heal, but that didn't mean it didn't hurt like a bitch. That would hurt anyone. Athena said, Artemis nodding in agreement. Naruto fell to his hands and knees once again, his impaled arm slowly healing, thanks to Apollo's genes. He winced but got to his feet. It was now or never. Helios, let's light him up. Naruto said, his eyes flashing pure gold as the energy exploded from him. Golden fire encased him and Naruto felt rejuvenated, eyes narrowing on Python as he stumbled around, holding his face. Now it's an even fight. Annabeth smiled, go Naruto. He vanished in a flash of light, snatching Eclipse up, and delivered a spinning kick to Python's head, knocking the Dragon Man to the ground. Take that, snake skin. Hermes whooped. Bastard. Python said, pushing himself to his hands and knees. Naruto stabbed the monster through the back, nailing him into the dirt. Arg. Fucking little prick. Lies. Apollo said. My girlfriend begs to differ. Naruto said. Of course she would, the love goddess said, looking at Talia to agree with her. The hunter only glared at her. He jumped up and stomped onto the pommel, the sword going deeper. Golden orbs with blue suns glared down at Python. You won't die easily, will you? Not with this power, Python said, melting into earth and making Naruto's eyes widen. Oh, that is just cheap, Nico shook his head. Tsuchi Bunshine. Naruto said to himself as he grabbed Eclipse and ducked under a swoop attack. Python landed with a skid and quickly turned to glare at Naruto. I'll admit, boy. I wasn't planning on you tapping into your inner titan. But then again, this body's previous owner never thought he'd be the one riding. How do the mortals say it now? Shotgun? Python asked. Hee, body jacking. Ares snickered, stupid mortal should have known better. Naruto just glared at him and Python smirks. He's crying for my head, you know. Shut up. Naruto said with his dual voice. Oh, the language he has, his mother never raised him well. Python said with a chortle. Then again, I guess she wouldn't be able to, what with being killed by his brother on the words of the village elders. And we cry for him, really? Ares mockingly said, not. You're going to monologue, aren't you? Naruto asked under his breath. He glared. He preferred banter to monologues. Seriously, boring. Percy gagged, monologue was terrible to hear. You know what? Python asked as they started to circle each other. He chuckled again. This fellow is very interesting. Some man by the name of Danzo ordered Itachi to kill the whole clan, sparing only his brother. Boring exposition, blah, blah, blah. Apollo looked bored now, way to kill the battle mood Python, nice job. I already know this. Naruto said tiredly. Yes, his ambition to destroy Konoha, to kill you, is all based on the wrongdoing done to his dear older brother. Python said with a snort. How pathetic. Yes. We know. Get on with the fight. Ares complained. Reminds me of your father. Always so eager to jump to his dear mommy's defense. Hey! The twins cried out. Don't talk about Leto. Naruto said with a glare. Despite the fact that they hadn't met yet, his grandmother was off limits. Damn straight. Said the Letoids under their breaths. Python's grin widened. I'll say this though, Python said with a grin, his wings spreading and his tail swishing eagerly. I can understand why he would go such a length. Even today, Leto is a very gorgeous being. Perhaps when this is all said and done, I will be rewarded with a prize. Dude did not just. Apollo was burning with bright light as Artemis was seething in moonlight, ready to kill something. Koios would kill him. Zeus said, his grip on his armrests tightening. Naruto vanished in a flash of light, his sword brought up and down as he came out of the teleport. The Stygian iron was caught between Python's hands and began to slowly drain him. Python grinned widely, his resistance was proving to be a well-sought investment. Smug evil prick. Artemis spat, eyes like balls of light now. Did I upset you? Python asked. I thought you wouldn't mind that sort of conversation. Shall we steer away to more personal matters? The subject of Kushina Uzumaki, perhaps? Apollo. Zeus warned as his son looked like he was going to explode into light particles. If anything, Naruto increased the pressure on his sword. A whole lot of interesting facts up here in this head. Python said. An image, a name, and an age, married? Look at you, the sole non-bastard of Soroktanos, miracles do happen. Apollo was gritting his perfect teeth. He wanted to fight the fucker again just so he could enjoy his screams. Fuck. You. No, little sunspot. Python twisted the sword out of Naruto's hands and tossed it to the side, his hands clamping to Naruto's head and pressing his thumbs into Naruto's eyes. Naruto grabbed Python's wrists, trying to crush them in his grasp, to no avail. Python just chortled again. Fuck. You. Naruto yelled in pain as Python's thumbs started to drive his eyes back into his skull. Well, if that ain't karma, Ares said. He struggled, trying to pull Python's hands away from his face, before ultimately giving up on that tactic and going for a counter. Kneeing Python in the groin. Go nephew. Artemis cheered wildly. Do it again. Python's eyes crossed and he stumbled back with a groan. Naruto gained space between them, rubbing his eyes in pain and trying to get his sight back as fast as possible. He jumped back again, barely avoiding Python's tail slamming down and shattering the ground where he stood. Naruto's eyes opened, seeing a blurry figure spin and extend towards him. Golden arms shot up to block the appendage, only for it to be faint and a snap kick landing directly in his gut. The demigods winced at that. Naruto was sent back, landing on his stomach with a grunt. He shook his head and quickly got back to his feet. A crackling sound had him sliding to the side, avoiding the Chidori sent in his direction. Naruto blinked the rest of the tears out of his eyes, glaring at Python as the monstrous draconian flexed his hands, static electricity dancing across them. Zeus grumbled at this, looking very unpleased. Python laughed. I love this energy you call chakra. With it, I am unstoppable. I feel like I could topple Olympus with my bare hands. Ha! The gods laughed. Funny. What an idiot. First you have to get through me, Naruto said, his palm gaining a familiar glowing orb. He rushed forward with the attack drawn back. Tiotan, Rasengan. Burn him to ashes. Python's smile widened again and he brought his scaled hand back as well. Loud chirping had filled the clearing as he ran forward with another Chidori at the ready. Both flung their respective attacks forward, colliding and causing a massive dome of energy to explode outward from it. Boom! Ares said, getting a few snickers. The explosion covered the hill where Zeus' fist was covered, the monsters fleeing towards it from the bellow of a soul satyr eradicated in the explosion. Guess they had a panic attack. Percy grinned, getting snorts and eye rolls. Fail. Leo said. Super fail. Talia corrected him. I liked it. Annabeth told her pouting boyfriend, getting a small smile out of him. It continued to spread towards the campers. Uh-oh. Everyone said. Being stopped by Kushina and Kakashi, Kushina throwing 5 tri-pronged kunai into the dirt and causing a purplish barrier to fly up. Jikuken keke. Kushina said, her hands in a seal while she fed chakra through the technique. The barrier swallowed most of the blast and spat it out a good distance away over the ocean. Now that was amazing. Athena noted, looking greatly intrigued by the technique. Kakashi, his Sharingan shifting into a new shape, covered the small gap with his own form of barrier. His pink eye evolved. Apollo cried out in mock worry. Kamui. Kakashi said, the blast being sucked into a small parallel dimension until it died down. Kakashi fell to his knees, panting while Kushina dropped her arms, feeling like noodles. He covered his eye quickly and panted in relief. Well, that was fun. You're telling me, Kakashi? Kushina said with a huff. Honestly, what kind of camp is this without a secure barrier jutsu? We aren't ninjas. Annabeth pointed out. Ares snorted, excuses. I just got here so you can't blame me. Sochi must have gotten lazy. I have no idea where he might have gotten that from. Indeed, Artemis looked at her twin, as both had calmed down somewhat, but were still edgy. Kushina huffed. Must be his father's doing. Ouch. Seems she agrees. A good match indeed. That's because she hates on me, jerk. Apollo frowned to his sister, who was smirking at him. Must be. Kakashi said with a nod. No way in hell was he going to take the fall for that. Sorry Apollo. Chiron would have my back. Apollo crossed his arms with a childish pout on his face. Stupid ninja student. Naruto pushed the fallen tree on him off, coughing up his mix of blood and ichor. He groaned as he got out of his rut. Golden Orb searched for the snake-like opponent, landing on the rut formed by Python. It was absent of a body. Aw damn it, Apollo frowned. Oh, that doesn't bode well. Surprise. Python flew at the blonde from behind, wings spread wide and tackling him. Python took Naruto through several trees, over a farmland and into a small suburb, busting through a house of mortals eating dinner. Honey, when did we get a new window? I'm not sure. Piper answered Leo's question. Naruto was finally released, being thrown into the side of a SUV and making quite the dent in it. He fell from it with a groan, picking himself up. What the shit was that? Helios asked. He just plowed us into a friggin' mortal house. We noticed. Hades said dryly, still, funny to watch. I noticed. Naruto thought back, groaning as he used the dented and alarm-blaring SUV to get back to his feet. I do not fear exposing our world, boy. Python said with a laugh. When this war ends, the world will know who its rightful rulers are, Kronos will be sure of that. Well. Poseidon trailed off with a grin. The draconian being turned to the house they shot through, the small family among with others on the porch watching in fear. Fire started to grow in his mouth, breaking through the gaps in his teeth. Python reared his head back and an enormous fireball shot from his mouth. Heir. Naruto appeared in front of the family, his hands outstretched and absorbing the dragon's fire. He glared at the sadistic Python. They're innocent in this. Seriously, not cool. Leo frowned, typical bad guy BS if you asked him. No one is innocent. Python said with a laugh, his voice sounding not as raspy for a moment. The yellow in his eyes receded for a moment before they returned. His raspy voice was more pronoun when he spoke again. Besides, you have to hold back now, don't you Mr. Hero? Naruto grit his teeth, his fists clenching. He's got a point. What do I do? Well, physical arrows won't do much, but perhaps some photokinetic arrows will, Helios said. Hell, you genius. Apollo grinned wildly, gleeful malice in his eyes. And how would I do that? Sure, I've got photokinesis, but it's not all that great. Naruto said. I'll handle the material, you hit the mark, so basically. Helios chuckled. In the words of Megan Fox, I'll drive, you shoot. Classic. Talia grinned. Let's scrap him, Naruto thought with a grin. Behind Python, there was a glow before a familiar golden bow appeared laying on the ground. The golden demigod smirked. Thanks Dad. Anytime. Naruto rushed at Python, the snake-like monster bracing himself to be attacked. Naruto smirked and teleported past Python, picking up his bow and drawing the string. A blindingly bright arrow burst to life, knocked and ready to fly. Well, that's a familiar image. Artemis commented as Apollo was burning with pride now. Naruto fired, hitting Python's wing and getting a roar for his troubles. Little shit. Python said with a snarl while some mothers covered their children's ears. He avoided another arrow, the red eye's pinwheels spinning as Naruto continued to take shots at him. Python gave another jeer as he charged forward. So much for your father's accuracy, boy. Oh no he didn't. Yes he did. Artemis teased. Arte, whose side you on? Yours, now silence and let's watch Naruto kill him. She instructed and Apollo listened to his little sister. Who says I'm aiming for you? Naruto asked under his breath. Python ignored it, letting another roar out before tackling the golden demigod. Naruto went with it this time, his arm wrapping around Python's neck and other his hand, still holding his bow, grabbing the back of Python's ruined Hakama. Naruto grinned. Heir. They reappeared in the arena of Camp Half-Blood, Naruto using Python's momentum to drive the monster headfirst into the stone wall. Now that's stonewalling. Leo said, getting some laughs. Oh, so it's funny when he jokes like that, Percy grumbled, so uncool. Annabeth just patted him to help him relax. Python fell to the ground, dazed, as did Naruto, whose back took quite a bit of damage at that decision. There was a shake in the ground and Naruto wondered what it could have been, but put those thoughts aside as Python wrapped his hands around Naruto's neck. You insignificant little shitstain. Python hissed. Do you know who I am? I am Python. The dragon of Gia. Protector of Pytho. The tormentor of Leto. And you also suck. Apollo jeered. The one that needs tic-tacs. That, too. Naruto grunted out, jamming a light arrow into Python's arm. The serpentine human roared, turning and tossing Naruto at a large cage, consequently destroying it. Naruto groaned as he lay on the ruins of the cage, rolling to the side and out of the way as a chirping arm thrust down to impale him through the chest. Little maggot. Die already. Python hissed. What if he doesn't want to? Hazel asked, don't tell him how to live his life. Yeah. Nico agreed. Not today. Naruto said, using his bow to sweep the monster's feet out from under him. He climbed to his feet and drew an arrow, shooting it at Python's head. He successfully hit the target, only for it to go up in smoke, replacing itself with a training dummy. What a snake, using ninja tricks. Jason said. Naruto swore and went on the defensive, rolling out of the way as a section of the arena's seats were ripped out and thrown at him. The glowing son of Apollo came out of his roll, turning and taking aim with his bow at the section Python stood in, holding another row of seats above his head. Naruto released his light arrow, missing as Python jumped up, tossing the row of seats at the demigod. Wonderful, Dionysus said sourly, something I'll have no doubt have to deal with. Naruto jumped back, landing in a crouch with his bow at the ready again, firing light arrow after light arrow in Python's direction. The draconian being flew down at him, avoiding the arrows until he was too close to bother with it. At that point, though, Python was blinded by rage. His Sharingan had turned to their next form, the atomic shape making Naruto scowl. If Python can make Susanoo. Helios began. I really hope he can't. Naruto thought as he rolled forward, dodging Python's crackling fists as they hit the dirt. That would be pushing it. Annabeth nodded. He turned and fired arrows at Python's back, not taking true aim, but having a feel for where to shoot. Please Dad, Auntie Arte, let me get a good shot in. Done. The twins agreed instantly. The nearly set moonlight pierced through the clouds and Naruto's eyes narrowed as Python turned around. His wings were punctured to the point it was hard to determine where the light arrows began and the wing began. Naruto took aim and let his arrow fly, grinning as the arrow pierced Python's left knee. Pin him. Python roared, dropping to his other knee and glaring at Naruto with so much effort that if possible, would have melted Naruto on the spot. No, there is already one I must kill. I will not let there be another Soroktanos. Oh, too late. Apollo cackled in glee. He started to rise, only for Naruto to take the other knee out. Python roared and fell to his back to keep the pressure off the joints. Naruto approached cautiously, drawing another light arrow and pinning Python's right hand to the dirt. You can't kill me. Python hissed. His scales peeled away, revealing Sasuke's face and hair like the scales were only armor. Kill me and your friend dies. Lame. Ares snorted, now the guy was just desperate. It was pitiful really. Gia will deem you a murderer forever. This is an enemy you don't want to make, boy. True. The seven said. You threaten me, Naruto said, shooting another arrow into Python's right arm, pinning it to the dirt. He then took the tail out of the equation. You threaten my dad. Damn right. Apollo nodded. Python hissed at him, only to roar as his left hand and arm met the same fate as his right. You threaten my Kaken and my grandmother. Indeed. Artemis snarled. Naruto drew a final arrow and aimed. As far as I'm concerned, I'm just protecting my family. Big time. The twins said as one. I curse you, boy. Python swore. Your soul will be mine to torture in Tartarus when Kronos rises. You will be my Urk. Ha, Ares set a hand to his ear. What was that? I can't hear over you choking on your own blood. He laughed. Yeah. I'll try to keep that in mind. Naruto said, his light flickering away as he stared at the arrow piercing Sasuke/Python's neck, causing the man and the monster to choke on blood. Naruto backed away and let his bow fall to the ground before flipping his hands through seals. His head reared back and his chest expanded before he expelled a giant ball of fire, roasting the dying hybrid to ashes. Burn. The sun god grinned. Naruto watched the fire burn until the sun rose and nothing remained but a charred patch of dirt, smoke wafting off of it into the sky. The sun shone brightly down upon him as it rose. In brilliant pride, Naruto just closed his eyes and let his head dip as he said goodbye to his first friend. May you finally be able to find peace with your family and death, Sasuke. And that, folks, is what we call a chapter. Ares grinned. I know. My kid rules. The archery god laughed. It was good. Artemis admitted with a nod. 30 Naruto stood silent next to his mother, who had been allowed a few days of freedom while Persephone and Demeter discussed how to handle Pan's death, since he helped keep animals from going crazy on farms. Really? Hermes asked his grain-obsessed aunt. Demeter nodded. It was very troubling to deal with. Nico and Bianca, the campers, sorted in their respective cabins with the children of the big three seated at the front of the amphitheater. They all wore black t-shirts like the other campers, watching the bodies burned while wrapped in their shrouds. Everyone bowed their heads to that. They were all sad to see such life gone. It was a bit selfish of him, but he wanted to be with his siblings. It's perfectly understandable. Artemis said. Michael was not the only child of Apollo to die in the Battle of the Labyrinth. They had lost 6 others, the most out of a cabin. Apollo dimmed greatly at this while Artemis took his hand, squeezing it to be there for her twin. Naruto's head dipped down as he silently listed the names of his little brothers and sisters. Samantha Anderson. Age 13. Second year at camp. She wanted to be a singer. A giant stepped on her. Ross Cunningham. Age 15. Third year. He was a cartoonist and wanted to work at Marvel Studios. Killed by a turned demigod. Clifton Owens. Age 10. First year. Burned in the trees with Jenna May. He wanted to be a race car driver. Jenna May Peters. Age 10. First year. Burned in the trees next to Clifton. She wanted to be a dancer. Colin Rogers. Age 14. Third year. Burned trying to save Clifton and Jenna May. He wanted to play in the NBA. John and Owen Vale. Age 15. Fifth year. John wanted to go into music study and Owen wanted to be on Broadway. All that potential, gone. Apollo whispered weakly. He hated this, all gods did, and it was terrible to hear and feel. 8 lights were snuffed out in that battle, and more would follow with the coming war. Naruto watched the pyre get lit and his fist clenched tightly as it passed over the first golden shroud. There were others that were lost, a poor son of Demeter, a daughter of Hephaestus. In the grand scheme of things, it wasn't actually a lot of dead, statistically, yes. Hades nodded. For the record, the other side lost far more. But to these kids it was enough. Percy and Annabeth nodded. Naruto had lived through an invasion like this once before, though then he was lucky enough not to have to kill an opponent, though the trade-off of nearly dying from a pierced lung wasn't as great, either, but had lost fellow comrades and his pseudo-grandfather. Losing the old leader was like losing half his childhood. Then losing Jiraiya to pain. Naruto shook his head. That one still stung a bit, especially now. As the ceremony ended, Naruto thought back to his prophecy's last 2 lines. After the Guardian's past returns twice more, 2 brothers shall fall during the Labyrinth's war. Aren't there more than 2? Leo asked. More than 1 brother fell. Naruto thought bitterly. Exactly, what the hell? Well, there's actually a reason for that line, Naruto. Helios said. Naruto said nothing, and the Titan continued on. Brothers in this case refers not to blood, but to bonds, Naruto said under his breath, getting a look from Bianca that he waved off. But Michael was my blood brother, and while we had a strong bond, it wasn't like the bond Sasuke and I had. Kid, the bond you and Sasuke had was one akin to Orion and Artemis. Sexual tension included. Artemis turned cherry red at that while Aphrodite giggled at her and sighed, such a waste. Fuck you. Just saying. Helios said, chuckling. The point is the bond we're talking about here is one of outcasts. Blackies. Leo frowned, he totally got that. Michael was the brother to Leo. Naruto said, it all falling into place in his head. He furrowed his brow. There wasn't any sexual tension there. Yeah, seriously. The pyro nodded. Well, not from Leo. Leo went wide-eyed, say what now? Don't you dare him this, Piper. The Latino panicked, he did not play for the other team, go figure. Never saw that coming. Neither did I, Percy admitted as Annabeth nodded with him. TCH, rookie. The ceremony ended and Chiron gave a nod to the impatient satyr standing off to the side. Percy, Talia, Grover and Annabeth followed him into the cloven. Time to face the music. Percy muttered. With his mother's approving nod, Naruto swiftly joined up with them, giving Lee a small apologetic glance as he walked past while Apollo's cabin counselor comforted Katie Gardner. Naruto let his hand slip around Talia's, the daughter of Zeus, intertwining her fingers with his in support as they walked. "Ah, now that's a couple." Aphrodite cooed as Talia rolled her eyes. The trial was a farce as far as Naruto was concerned. The satyrs were too stubborn, unable to accept that gods could die. Morons, the lot of them. Hades snorted, slightly upset that he could never torture a satyr soul. Aside from the fact that he, Phoebe and Reyna were proof of otherwise, Grover had apparently used panic, Pan's mightiest weapon in early god wars. "Always fun to watch," Ares commented with a laugh. That, coupled with Nico releasing Daedalus' soul from its confines, would explain the shaking of the earth he had felt when he fought Python/Sasuke. "This is bullshit," Naruto said, getting a nod from Talia as they listened to the angry elder satyr call for Grover's banishment. "Pan is dead," Grover finally said in his defense. He looked confident and stood tall, Percy and Annabeth at one side while Juniper was at the other. The wheelchair-bound Chiron gave a proud smile to the satyr and Naruto stood from where he leaned against a tree, Talia doing the same. They came to stand behind their satyr as he continued. "It falls to us to save the wild." "Indeed it does." Artemis nodded, glancing around and got some nods of support. "If we don't act, silence, Grover Underwood. You shame your ancestors for speaking such lies." "Excuse me? Did I hear something about lies?" a new voice asked. Eyes went to the clearing and dressed in a relaxed business suit was one of Naruto's two favorite uncles, Hermes. "Cameo bitches." "Hermes. Sorry Aunt Hestia." He wasn't playful at the moment though, he was distraught and angry, and it could be seen in his cold blue eyes. Lord Hermes." The elder satyr, Silenus, said, blinking in surprise before he recollected himself. "Why yes, well we were just discussing the banishment of Grover Underwood, who claims Pan to be dead. Which is ridiculous. Pan is dead," Hermes said, the grove going silent. "Like a boss, Herm. Like a boss. Thank you, Apollo." He looked to Grover and gave him a nod. "You do me great honor, Grover. Finding Pan before he." Hermes definitely looked like he was living a poor life at the moment, and Naruto understood. Many parents would tell him how horrible it was to have to outlive your child. Apparently it was no different with the gods. Naruto wondered exactly how horrible that was, seeing each and every mortal child you ever had die while you continued on. "It honestly sucks," Hermes said as all the gods nodded. He quietly vowed never to put himself in that situation. "Anyway," Hermes' voice broke Naruto from his inner questions. "Pan is dead. I feel it in my very ichor-filled veins. The gods he worked closely with have felt it, his passing. You shame us by dare suggesting that the one who found him, is delivering his message, is lying." Hermes, that was the best verbal goat slapping, ever, of all times. Ares nodded in respect, making the speedy god smirk. "Thank you. But Lord Hermes. It is a lie. If you finish that accusation, Silenus, I will ensure that Hades has his first satyr soul to torture." Hermes said with a glare. Hades turned to Hermes, "You will be my favorite nephew of all time." "Hey!" Ares shouted, feeling down at that, he thought he was his uncle's favorite. The Cloven elders collectively shuddered at the look. "Now, as to whether this begets banishment, I vote it doesn't. I vote no on the banishment as well," Chiron said. "The council will vote. All in favor?" Silenus asked. His two goons flanking him, both equally aged satyrs, shared concerned looks before they raised their hands along with Silenus. 3-2. "A god's vote is worth 2. Hermes said coolly. "And the epic slaps continue," Apollo said. Silenus opened his mouth to argue and Hermes' eyes narrowed. "I warn you, I have just come as close as I ever will to terms with my son's passing, and if you try to trifle with me, you will regret it." Silenus' mouth shut again with a click. Hermes nodded. "Damn right bitch. You shut your mouth. The motion is dissolved," Hermes said, daring the council to challenge him again. They were no fools, though, as they collectively left, but not before Silenus sent Grover a look of anger. Hermes watched them leave before he approached the satyr on trial. "You have a big job ahead of you, Grover Underwood, but your message will be passed along without issue. There will be bumps, but it will get through." "It most certainly will." Demeter nodded. Thank you, Lord Hermes," Grover said, bowing. Hermes smiled, a lot like Pan's, and rubbed Grover's curly hair. "Aw, sweet of you Herm." Apollo teased as the god in question rolled his icy blue eyes. "Don't mention it." Hermes turned to leave, his eyes catching Naruto's before he did and the air of Helios nodded slightly. The messenger god left the grove and, after giving Grover a pat on the shoulder after Juniper gave him a kiss, Naruto followed after him. Surprisingly, Naruto caught up to his uncle rather quickly. Unsurprisingly, Hermes had changed from a formal suit into a UPS uniform, talking on his phone in Attic Greek. Naruto heard the words for immediate, important and do not fail. Be sure to add a self-destruct function to that message. Ares grinned while his younger brother shook his head. Hermes shut his phone with a click, twisting it in his hands as it became his caduceus. The god turned and gave Naruto a smile, and while it looked like Pan's, there was a weight of sadness behind it. Hey kiddo, how's it going? Hermes asked. Not good. Naruto said, getting a nod from the god. I hear you. Packages in Florida are backing up again. It's horrible mess down there because of a bunch of floods. Hermes said, giving a fake smile that Naruto had seen many times in the mirror. Ooh, Ares grinned widely, he's gonna tell Tilda. Great, the messenger god's mood soured. Uncle Hermes. Naruto faltered for a moment. He didn't want to blame Luke for all of this, especially not to the god's face, but he had to tell Hermes what was wrong with the demigod. You might want to sit down. Papa squat, squirt. Fuck you, Ares. Hermes' failed smile fell. Something wrong? You need to sit down, first. Naruto said. Hermes nodded and he brought a toppled tree over to them with a snap of his fingers. The dryad that came out gave him a dirty look before realizing just who she was looking at and bailing. Flee! Flee! Frank cried out. Hermes sat and gestured for Naruto to join him. What's on your chest, kiddo? Hermes asked. Naruto's tongue felt like lead. He wondered if this was a curse, always being honest and telling the truth. Major pain, sadly. Apollo grimaced. Seeing the broken look in Hermes' eyes was horrible, like one more bad thing would make the Olympian snap. I was close. Hermes admitted. Yes, Athena nodded, all package deliveries went into a crisis mode that day. I was taking a grieving day. No, he has to know. He deserves to know. Naruto told himself as he sat on the log. Uncle Hermes, Luke is, he. Naruto failed to find words at first. Mentioning Luke's name had the god stiffening where he sat. The following news would probably shatter Hermes' spirit. Taking a deep breath, Naruto told him. About the thing with Kronos. About his actions in the labyrinth. About what happened with Atlas. Oh man, I cannot wait to see his face. Ares, be silent. Athena frowned at him, enough already. Nah. Hermes just stayed quiet, still stiff and his knuckles turning white around the caduceus as Naruto continued. Finally, when Naruto finished, he studied the god just as Hermes stared back at him. There was a storm behind Hermes' eyes. Denial. Anger. Depression. All sorts of human emotions. It made Naruto wonder just how wonderful immortality was. Everything has its ups and downs. Hades shrugged, just look at his job. Is that all? Hermes asked, his voice even and betraying nothing. I'm sorry, Uncle Herm. Naruto said, looking at the ground. This was the hardest part for him to admit. But we might have to. Don't say it. Hermes wasn't pleading, he was ordering Naruto not to finish that thought. Ares turned to Apollo, seems someone can't handle the truth. Dude, dick move, but true. Apollo. What? Can't lie. Remember? He took a deep breath before putting his hand on Naruto's shoulder. You're so much like Helios it's scary, do you know that? Amazingly, yes. Artemis nodded. Trust me. I have an idea. Naruto said, getting a sad smile from his uncle. Brutally honest, bad news when we don't want it, not even Apollo would make those choices. Hermes said, his hand pulling back to rest on his lap. I wouldn't like this information to spread, Naruto. He wasn't here at the battle, so I can have some hope, right? You said the mortal girl's hairbrush stirred something in him? Send another fruit basket. Zeus informed Hermes, who made a note of it. Yes. Naruto said. Then there is a way to get him back. Hermes said, not leaving room for discussion. Thank you for bringing this to me before any of the others. Zeus glanced at his speeding son, who gave a stony face right back to him. The younger god had every right to try and help his child. He stood and began walking away. Uncle Herm. Naruto said, getting to his feet. Hermes turned and Naruto gave him an apologetic smile. If you can't find a way to save him. I will, Hermes said, giving his nephew a glare for suggesting otherwise. I've lost one too many sons this millennium, Naruto. Definitely. Hermes sighed to that. Naruto said nothing, his warning was given and Hermes was aware of what he would do if necessary. Least someone has the balls to do it. Ares muttered, but Hermes still glared at him. They said nothing more, Naruto watching as Hermes vanished, space bending around him and fading away until nothing but the breeze filled the air. Naruto looked up at the sky, where the sun continued to shine down on him between the clouds. Naruto stayed with Cabin 7 that night, leaving clones with Bianca and Nico, the normally glowing cabin looking dim when people walked past. He took a bunk that was once John's, and at night they had a sing-along, choosing the phrase "How to Save a Life" to sing before bed. That song always makes me feel like crying. Piper admitted, getting some nods. It hit Naruto hard, considering he was taken out of the battle early. How many lives could have been saved had he been able to fight? Ah, the what-ifs. Athena sighed, the biggest thing after any battle. Does anyone blame him for not being there? Why was it always the youngest, that had the brightest futures ahead of them, had to die? The fates suck. Percy noted, getting nods all around. It was questions like these that kept him awake until he finally fell asleep. Naruto woke up in tears that night. The faces of his siblings who had died were smiling in his dreams. He sat up and put his hands to his face, feeling the tears fall silently down his cheeks. That is just so sad. Hazel frowned, feeling terrible for Naruto. So did the rest of the demigods. Sochi. A gentle voice said, pulling him into a hug. It's okay to cry. So he did. His arms wrapped around his mother's side and his face buried itself in her shoulder, dry heaving but quiet sobs leaving him while Kushina hummed and pet his hair. Naruto clung to her, feeling so very small at the moment, and his heart felt like it was in a vice. A man showing his vulnerable side, Aphrodite sighed. It's so magical. There is something wrong with you. Artemis commented to herself. They're gone, and it's all my fault. Naruto choked out. No, Sochi, no it's not. Kushina said softly. You did your best. I could have saved them. Naruto said. Hero guilt. Percy nodded in understanding, he knew it all too well. Maybe. Kushina said. Maybe. You do so much good, Naruto, but even you can't be everywhere at once. Only you could have stopped Sasuke. She pushed him back gently, giving him a warm smile. You're so hard on yourself. You do so much for others and put so much weight on your shoulders. She kissed his forehead and pulled him into another hug. And I'm so proud of you. Naruto just broke down in tears. Talia, hug him. Shut up. Talia told the love goddess. A few days later, camp was getting back to normal and the two newcomers were settling into their jobs of choice. Kakashi, a sword master, always reading a book, not Icha, as he taught the kids. Ares' cabin hated him. That wasn't surprising, as the sarcastic laid-back shinobi just ground on everybody's nerves when he was teaching them. Ares frowned at that while some snickered. Outside of the lessons he was probably the Hermes cabin's favorite, and the Stoll twins picked up masks of their own to emulate him. Ninja kids, all right. Hermes cheered. Go kids, go. Live ninja lives as only ninjas could. Kushina took up residence as sort of a guidance counselor and teacher for other forms of combat. A guidance counselor does sound nice. Annabeth commented. Well, look into it. Athena said, as it was indeed a good idea. Her favorite duty, however, was to dote on her stepchildren. Zeus took a side glance at his wife, while she glared at him, clearly saying never going to happen. Did she like the fact that other women have been with her husband? No, not particularly. Exactly. Hera nodded. But that didn't mean she hated her stepchildren. You could learn something from her, sister. Silence, Hades. It was no fault of theirs that Apollo stupidly sealed his married memories away, after all. Yes, stupid Apollo. Arte. She adored all of them, becoming a second mother to them and doing her best to learn all about their lives so far. Zeus sent pleading eyes to his wife, whose scowl deepened while glaring at him for even thinking of the notion. It was when Kushina was talking to Lee about his girlfriend that she stumbled across some very interesting information. Information that her son had neglected to tell her about. Information that was life-changing. Wow, he's in trouble. Frank figured, getting a few nods. It's not like he's a virgin. Apollo shrugged, his sister glaring at him in remembrance of how that happened. Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto winced, wondering what he had done now to incur his mother's wrath. All he had been doing all day was lazing about with Talia and Ranger on the couch, the big cat resting his head on Naruto's lap while Talia rested her head on his shoulders, and they watched the Fellowship of the Ring. Talia blinked, not really her kind of movie, but whatever she guessed. Hopefully she wouldn't find him in cabin 1. The last thing he needed was to be chewed out in his girlfriend's cabin. Totally embarrassing. Piper nodded in agreement. The back door of the room was banged on and he paused the movie. Talia gave him an amused look while he pouted at her. She'd find out sooner or later. Talia said. Yeah, but I thought that bribe with Cabin 10 was good enough to keep their mouths shut for another month, Naruto said. Wasn't our fault. Piper pouted at the accusation. The door was banged on again and he groaned. Hi, Kaken, be there in a second. Mama's boy. Oh shut up, Leah-chan. Naruto said to his snickering girlfriend. He grumbled as he unlocked the door and opened it, seeing his mother standing before him with an eerie gleam in her eye. Hey, Kaken. Where is she? Kushina asked. Someone's in trouble. Hera smiled as Talia scowled at her stepmother's words. In the cabin? Well, bring her out here. Kushina said. Naruto blinked and she shook her head. Technically I work for Hades. Ah, technicalities. Zeus smiled fondly while his siblings rolled their eyes. Oh, right. Naruto said, scratching the back of his head sheepishly. He might have a pass, through Naruto felt that pass might get revoked sometime soon, yes. Zeus said, his smile slipping into a scowl. But there was nothing that said Kushina did. He turned back into the room and walked to the couch, snatching the remote from Talia and pausing the movie again. Kaken wants to talk to you. What? Talia asked, looking at Naruto like a deer in the headlights. Scared, Talia Grace? Hera asked her mocking. No. The hunter scowled, okay, maybe a little, but not like she'd ever admit it. Yep. So come on, Leah-chan. Naruto said, dropping the remote on the couch before tapping his lazy saber-tooth. Get up and greet Kaken, Range. Ranger yawned and slumped down to the floor, stretching out his limbs as he walked behind Talia to the front door. He bounded past Talia once he got outside, sniffing the bodyguard of Persephone before he rubbed against her legs, claiming her as one of his humans so his siblings didn't get any funny ideas. Dem cats are weird like that. Leo nodded. Kushina just laughed and pet the giant saber-tooth on the head, getting deep purrs from the giant cat. Talia watched this, taking in Kushina's appearance once again and feeling just a bit jealous. She was a beautiful woman, whose skill with a blade and ninjutsu surpassed her in ways Talia couldn't begin to describe. Looks and strength, definitely jealous. Annabeth giggled as Talia pouted at her. She was the epitome of Mother Bear, and frankly, wouldn't be surprised if that was the animal she chose to represent her. Epitome, I'd think Mother Rhea would take that name. Poseidon commented, getting nods from his siblings. Or grandmother. Hestia added. That got shivers all around. Kaken, Talia Grace. Naruto said from behind her, pushing the daughter of Zeus forward. Talia, this is my Kaken. Hello. Talia gave a small wave, wondering why she felt like she was just thrown to the wolves. Well, that might be a bit much. Jason frowned, he liked wolves. Kushina stood upright and began walking around Talia. Judging every single part of you. Hera. Zeus frowned as his wife gleamed happily. Her hand went to her chin, the elbow supported by the other hand, and amethyst eyes were washing over the daughter of Zeus. The red-headed woman hummed, making Talia squirm. Hera was loving this if the smile on her face was any indication. Talia yelped, she did not squeak, despite whatever her idiot of a boyfriend ever says you so squeaked. Annie. The hunter whined. As hands she was not familiar with began patting her hips from behind. The gods snickered, figuring out why she did that while the demigods were confused as hell. Talia was worried about the fact that she was being felt up by another woman. I suppose they'll do. Talia heard her mutter. Do what, exactly? Aphrodite was a bundle of giggles, well aware of what Kushina was looking for. Kushina turned to give Naruto a thumbs up. Well done, Sochi. Now, when should we expect? Huh? Naruto asked with a blink. Expect what? Talia asked, her arms crossed over her chest after the weird touch she got from the red-headed woman. Hot. Leo. Jason frowned sternly. What? My sister. My other's wife. Apollo added. So? Touché. The god said. Grandbabies of course, Kushina said, her eyes rolling. Her statement had the couple bursting into sputtering messes. Talia made a strangling noise as the demigods were either gaping or laughing their butts off. Shut up. Talia cried out. Her face was a blazing red. She was feeling dizzy. I'm not pregnant. Exactly. The hunter agreed. And I'm not ready for that. Talia said as she turned red. I'm only 19. And in a 16-year-old's body. Apollo corrected her, making Talia pale. She didn't want to end up like one of those girls. Yeah, and I'm not ready to be a father. Naruto said, nodding in agreement. Nonsense. Kushina said, waving their protests off. She just waves it off, Hermes snickered. Kaken, we're in the middle of a war. So? Your father and I made you in the middle of the third war. Wow, go Apollo. Ares nodded in respect to his sunny brother. Thank you, ow. Apollo winced from the slap he got from his sister. I don't want to hear that. Naruto said, his hands clapping over his ears. He wanted to shoot himself. He wasn't his aunt, he didn't want to know how, when or where he was conceived. Apollo went green as Artemis nodded, it helped her make her choice to stay a virgin after all. Talia was no better, making strangling noises where she stood. To make it a little worse, Kakashi was walking over to them with 2 cigars in hand. Like a boss. Hermes laughed. He blinked. Did I pick a bad time? Come back later. Kushina said, waving him away. We're making baby plans. No you're not. Talia cried out with a red face. Kakashi blinked. He shrugged and turned around, I'll just save these for the stag party. Good luck, Naruto. Okay now that is hilarious. Apollo pointed out with laughter as all the guys snickered in agreement. Gods, damn it, Kakashi. Naruto said, his hands going to his face and dragging down before he continued. Kaken, we're not having babies. But Sochi, Kushina said, whining. She pouted at him. Grandbabies. They're so cute and cuddly and fun to spoil. The goddesses and demigoddesses nodded, they were cute and such. You've got stepchildren, Naruto said dryly, making Kushina's pout increase. Indeed. Apollo nodded as Hera glared at him, hey, my other is married, not me. You could learn a thing or two from him. His stepmother sniffed. True, but with me back, Apollo's pretty much cut off from having any more. Kushina said, smirking at him. Apollo paled, but Hera was grinning ear to ear. She liked this woman. And when those run out, I'll be getting grandbabies. Talia felt really dizzy again, yeah, sure Kaken. Naruto said with a nod, getting a look from Talia. A scary look, mister. Talia cried out. He leaned over to her and whispered. Just roll with it. I don't want to though. Yay. Kushina said, her hands flying above her head with a wide smile. She gave Naruto a kiss on the cheek and then pulled Talia into a hug. Have fun you two. Lots and lots of fun. Aphrodite, Artemis frowned as the goddess was giggling perversely, we just dodged the biggest bullet to ever walk this earth. Naruto said to Talia, who nodded numbly. A mother wanting grandchildren. Something to be feared. Zeus said, getting nods all around. We will never speak of this again. Yep. Oh pooh. The Lady of Doves pouted. Days had passed and Kushina was happily distracted with her stepchildren, leaving Naruto and Talia free to do their own thing. Unfortunately, today was not one of those days, as Talia had to teach the spear-using class since Clarice took a few days off to be with Chris in New York. Ares grumbled at that while Hermes smirked at him. This left Naruto alone, not in the mood to personally teach hand-to-hand and leaving the job to a clone. Bored, I'm so bored, Naruto said as he sat upside down on the couch in Cabin 13's living space. He couldn't bug Annabeth because she was teaching Greek. Percy was actually studying on his own, so he couldn't implement tests. Teach me your ways. Annabeth. Percy pouted at her. Leo was holed up with Beckendorf working on some top-secret project, so no good pranks could be done. Piper was in class with Kakashi, so he couldn't train her in the ninja arts or get a good spar. And his mother had gone to check on Persephone, so there weren't any ramen-eating contests. The horror. Hazel snickered. Ranger yawned on the floor and Naruto soon followed his example. There was just nothing to do. And that was the worst feeling imaginable to Konoha's #1 hyperactive knuckle-headed ninja. I guess I could try and see behind Kakashi's mask again, Naruto said, though while once enticing, he just didn't care anymore. It was hard to imagine the man without his mask. I'd want to see his face, Aphrodite commented, getting Ares to scowl. Naruto groaned and clawed at his head. I wish something would happen to make the boredom go away. You should be careful with wishes like that, young hero. Naruto pushed himself off the couch, standing upright from his impromptu flip and looking in the direction of the newcomer. The speaker was a petite woman with short blonde hair and golden eyes. She was wearing a navy blue Nike tracksuit and shoes of the same brand. White wings spread slightly from her back and a golden wreath of laurel leaves in her left hand. Ah, Zeus smiled at his loyal follower, Nike was such a good goddess. Athena was also smiling at her good friend. The woman gave a winning smile to him. Hello, young hero. A pleasure to meet you. Nike. The younger gods grinned, she was so pretty to look at. Hi? Naruto said, not recognizing the goddess. Taking a guess from the product placement, he asked. Are you, Nike? No. Leo shook his head mockingly, getting Piper to roll her eyes. First place goes to you. Nike said with a laugh. Naruto just nodded, wondering why the goddess of victory was visiting him. Luckily, Nike seemed to sense that and gave him another winning smile. You'd think you would see her on a commercial or something. Annabeth commented. She has been. Apollo said, seriously, you know how hard it is to get a winning smile? It's hard to get it so naturally like she makes it. Someone high up wants to meet with you, young hero. So I was sent to pick you up. Well, more like I volunteered. Volunteered? Naruto asked, a bit on edge. Nike was a herald of Zeus, one of his most trusted companions. He could guess who had sent her and was pretty much praying that it wasn't to kill him. He wouldn't do that. Apollo waved off. Maybe. Zeus said with a neutral face, getting his sunny son to pout at him. Why would you do that? Nike just smiled. You're my granddaughter's godfather. I figured I should get to know you. Come again? Naruto asked. He had one goddaughter and she was. Well, that certainly explained Ayame's positive outlook on life. So, she was a demigod. Demeter commented. Certainly had the looks for one. Aphrodite nodded. Yes, dear little Reiko. She's a cutie, has her grandma's eyes. It's been driving Ayame's poor husband up the wall wondering where they came from. Nike said with a grin. This isn't my child. Hermes cried out, getting a few laughs as Hera frowned at him for that. Yeah, Iruka-sensei would do that. Naruto said, chuckling. There was something he could do, sneak a visit to his goddaughter. After this trip of course. And gush how cute she is. Aphrodite nodded in agreement. He walked over to the charioteer and nervously smiled. So, to the gallows then? Nike bopped him on the head with her laurel. That thing hurts. Apollo said knowingly. Don't be so negative. We're just going to Olympus for a meeting. Now come on. The winged woman grabbed Naruto by the wrist and pulled him along after her out the door. A golden chariot, not as bright as his own, adorned with lightning bolts along the sides and the front awaited them. Two storm-like horses stood at the end, their manes crackling with lightning that filled their dark storm cloud-like bodies. Zeus gave a fond smile at his chariot, just magnificent. His brothers were rolling their eyes, theirs were far superior. Nike just whistled and they whinnied, taking off after Naruto and Nike climbed onto the chariot. They climbed high into the sky, Naruto clinging to the chariot with chakra as Nike directed her horses like a master. Climb, triumph. Onward, strive. Nike cheered her steeds on, the spirits whinnying at her urging and speeding up. Nice names. Frank said in a dry tone, how very of her domain. She gave a grin to Naruto. Newest batch born, their great-great-great-grandfathers pulled the original chariot. Cool. Yes, they certainly are. You might have lucked out with Zephyr, but there's nothing more rewarding than taming the beast and befriending it. Nike said. Very true. Poseidon nodded to this, raising his own from time to time. I know that feeling. Naruto said, thinking to his nine-tailed friend. So who asked for me? You can tell me that much, right? Where's the fun in that, young hero? Boo, Leo frowned, we want to know now. Figures. Nike laughed. It is not Lord Zeus, if that is what concerns you. Ah, Zeus frowned as Apollo looked relieved. Oh, well, that's a relief. Naruto said, his shoulders relaxing. I cannot promise he won't pull you aside, though. Zeus' smile returned as Apollo's tan paled quickly. Oh. Joy. Your question will be answered shortly, young hero. Here we are. Nike said, her chariot landing on the metaphysical mountain. Naruto could never get over the awe that he felt whenever he was on Olympus. The blonde stepped off the chariot and followed Nike, the winged woman beckoning him to follow as she rushed ahead. They finally came to a stop outside a temple whose doors were engraved with the image of a peacock and Naruto felt his blood leave his face. Bum bum bum. Hermes sang as Hera scowled at him. Have a nice conversation, young hero. Nike said before giving him a clap on the shoulder. And check in on my daughter every now and then. Why yes, ma'am. Naruto said, feeling the hidden threat in her words wash over him. She can be scary when she wants to be. Athena smirked at the minor goddess' sharp edge. The goddess beamed at him and bounded away, yelling a playful challenge to a group of nymphs. I wonder what kind of Apollo, so help me. Naruto looked back up at the doors and steeled himself as best he could, walking up and raising his hand to knock on the doors. The door cracked open before he could and Naruto heard Helios humming the funeral march. See, hell so agrees with me. Hermes beamed, the kid was doomed. Ignoring it, Naruto entered, keeping his head high as he walked into the temple. He stopped and knelt when he came to Hera's throne, the goddess sitting in it regally while a young girl poured her a glass of nectar. Who's that? Percy whispered to Annabeth, Who just told him to wait? He guessed the cupbearer was Hebe, wife to the jerk himself, Heracles. Hera gave her daughter a smile of thanks before setting the cup on a small table that had a scroll of sorts next to it. Oh, Percy whispered, now he remembered, that automation of her son what's-his-face. Naruto Uzumaki. Hera said, making Naruto straighten up. Son of Apollo. Heir of Helios. Neos Sorictanos. I like these titles. Apollo beamed, his kid was so boss. Well, of course that name stuck. Naruto thought with a small smirk. Snakes had to die. Amen. The snake killer agreed. You answered my summons without hesitation. Impressive. Hera said. Most would have gone running and peed their pants. Poseidon joked, getting a few laughs and a glare from his sister for the remark. Naruto said nothing, the goddess arching a delicate brow before she waved her hand. You may speak, Naruto. Why have you summoned me, Lady Hera? Naruto asked, rising to his feet. Yes, I am curious as well. Zeus murmured while his wife had a good idea what her other was going to do. Prior to the Battle of the Labyrinth, I assisted Athena's daughter and she asked me why I chose to help her instead of you, since there was the rare event of 2 quests going instead of just one. Hera said. Helped. Annabeth mocked under her breath. I told her how I have watched you since you learned of your father's true self and how you are a true demigod. Oh, here we go. Demeter rolled her eyes. Thanks to your mother miraculously tying down Apollo. Which in and out of itself is amazing. Hera sniffed as Apollo rolled his eyes. Your bravery and the care you show for your family makes you a good man in my eyes. Even I agree, for the most part. Artemis nodded. She was still a bit sour for the taking of Talia's virginity, but that was her domain so it was understandable. Naruto was standing straight at the praise, though he ignored being called a true demigod. Hera pursed her lips at the snickers from the gods. Aside from your choice who you have a relationship with, of course. Hera said, watching him intently for an outburst of some sort. Okay, I actually saw that coming, Talia said dryly. Naruto managed to keep his anger down, though his gaze had hardened slightly. Content that he wasn't going to speak out, Hera continued. Wow, poke him with a cattle prod. Hermes, Hera glared, those devices were a monstrosity to her sacred animal. That all said, I would like to offer you the position of being my champion. Jason went wide-eyed at that. The offer is formal, right? I have to accept, don't I? Naruto asked. Hera smiled slightly. Clever boy. Same happened to me, Jason muttered under his breath so not do offend his patron goddess. I try. Naruto said. He frowned. Why me? Don't you already have a champion in Jason? Talia grumbled at that while Hera smiled softly. Juno does, yes. Hera said, making Naruto nod. But I need a true champion, just as Pan did. Well, not really like Pan. Hermes muttered. Hera raised an eyebrow. I would like a champion as well, Hermes. It is perfectly fair. You are a demigod I never thought would have been born, yet here you stand. So, I ask again, will you be my champion? It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for her after all. Hades rolled his eyes. It would be an honor, Naruto said, bowing. Hera smiled and rose from her seat, walking to him in a stride before placing her hand on his head. Kneel before Zod. Apollo, Hera fumed at that as everyone gave a few laughs. I name you, Naruto Uzumaki, as my champion. Your body will never fall victim to mortal frailty and your loyalty shall never falter. There was a light glow and Naruto felt a warmth cascade over him. What'd he get? Jason asked. He only got a sword. Who can say? Hera smiled a mysterious smile. Hera stepped back and nodded at him, her smile still in place. Go, Naruto Uzumaki, and prove yourself worthy of my blessing. Thank you, Lady Hera. Naruto said, bowing again before he turned and left the Queen of Olympus to herself. To plot, Hermes. The Queen of Heaven warned sternly as the young god was grinning, I think Hera likes boys with blonde hair and blue eyes. Helios said after a moment. Jason's eyes went wide as Hera's face was stunned along with her husband as the others cracked up at that. Naruto choked and nearly tumbled over a nymph that had crouched down to pick a flower of some sort from the cracks in the golden stone that lined the pathway. Giving a quick apology to the nymph and sending a silent glare to Helios, Hera joined her new champion readily at that. How dare that brat even consider such a thing? Naruto resumed his search for Nike. He needed a ride back to camp and Zephyr was also strangely missing. He kept wandering Olympus halls, bowing his head to the minor gods he passed to show his respect. Smart move. Apollo nodded. Get them on your side with some respect. Seriously, they goofed on that. Not many would bow for a forgotten mother. A voice said as he bowed again. A hand lightly tilted his head up and Naruto's eyes widened. A goddess with milky skin and dark hair that cascaded down her back like a river. Two silvery eyes like stars in the night sky met his sunny blue sky like eyes, and a connection was formed. Apollo and Artemis' jaws nearly dropped. "Gee, Grandma?" Naruto asked hesitantly. "Why is she there?" Hera frowned. "Mom can visit," Apollo told her stepmother with a mild glare, joined by Artemis. The goddess of marriage just huffed at that. Leto smiled at him, a smile that reminded him of his mother's and his aunt's, the smile that someone with only maternal instincts could have, that she does. Artemis smiled softly for her mother. And she nodded. "Yes, I suppose I am." "Hello, Naruto." Hi Grandma Leto." Naruto said. "Thank you for killing Python again." Leto said. She smiled brightly at him. "Since the foolish serpent bound himself to a mortal, he'll be tortured for quite a while." "Ah, indeed." Hades nodded. "That was certainly a strange case. It was necessary," Naruto said solemnly, his eyes turning down. Leto tilted his head up again. "Now, enough of that. Your friend chose his path and you chose your own. And I, for one, am very grateful for it," Leto said, giving him a kiss on the forehead. "The only place a grandmother could ever kiss," Frank said. Naruto flushed a bit, making her smile. "Such a modest boy. Why can't your father act that way?" "I know, Mother. Arte. Because he's awesome," Naruto said, using finger quotes on the word awesome. His dad was great and cool, but awesome was not the word Naruto would use to describe him. Well, at least not all the time. "Lies." Apollo cried out. It was true, and as the god of truth, he knew. Leto giggled. "Yes, and hopefully that'll change with his marriage. Along with responsibility. Honestly, back when he first started out he was always on time, even in the winter. Now it's a different time every day, minutes off each day. If only he were more responsible like his sister." Artemis looked smug to her twin, who was now pouting like a kid with crossed arms. "Well, we did send him an alarm clock," Naruto said, thinking of the gift he and his siblings picked out from Amazon. "The Amazons he means," Percy said knowingly. "Unfortunately, with him already married and Artemis swearing men off altogether, which I have no idea where she got it from." Artemis looked pink as her twin snickered at her, making her scowl at him. "I mean, really, how are we supposed to bond if she can't come to me about her boy problems?" Leto asked with a pout. "Wow, way to go Arte." "Be silent, womanizer." Naruto snickering. Leto sighed. "Anyway, with both of them unlikely to come to me for this, I figure I should give it to a worthy legacy. Here, Naruto." Oh, what?" Apollo asked in an eager tone. She placed a small item in his hand. Naruto looked it over, a simple yet elegant intertwining band of gold and silver. "Yeah, I can see why we wouldn't need it." Apollo ran his hand through his blonde hair, Artemis nodding in agreement, despite it being beautiful. Aphrodite was in giggles at the ring. "Oh, Leto, you sly one you." The blonde put it in his pouch, determined to find a safe place for it when he got back to the camp. "A gift from my mother after I decided that my twins were enough," Leto said with a smile. "She wanted to give it to me after I got married, but I'm enjoying being a grandmother. My grandchildren's lives are far more entertaining." "Anytime, Mom," Apollo said with smug to his twin. "Humph, I still have the hunters. Who aren't her blood. So Mother isn't picky." "Apollo, Artemis," Zeus said, getting them to stop bickering. "And to be frank, I can't wait to have some one-on-one time with your mother. The stories I'll hear." Apollo paled. "You mean about Dad's time in Konoha, right?" Naruto asked. "Oh yes, sure," Leto said, waving him off. It didn't exactly reassure Naruto, but he wasn't about to argue with her. The mother of the Letoids smiled at her grandson, giving him another hug. "You must get going before Zeus decides to come investigate the strange feeling on Olympus. The rants he has about you sometimes." Talia looked at her father, who had the decency to look away. "It puts the rest of Olympus in stitches, but I suppose it would be rather frightening for you." "Damn well should be," the king of the gods said. "Probably," Naruto agreed. He hugged Leto back. "Bye Grandma. I'll tell the others you say hi. No offense, but we were all worried you faded." "Nah." The twins shook their head. "As long as Apollo and Artemis stories remain, so shall I," Leto said to comfort him as she squeezed him back. "Exactly," Apollo pointed out. "Now get going, Naruto. Give your siblings my love." "You got it, Grandma," Naruto said once he pulled away. Leto pointed him in the direction of where Nike was last seen, and with a final goodbye, he was running off, beaming at the encounter. Leto watched him run, a smile spreading across her face. He certainly was a little storm, not unlike his grandfather. Zeus scoffed at that. But had a more prominent sunny personality like her son and his predecessor. And that is the solemn truth. The truth, God nodded, beaming brightly. The sound of a scoff had Leto turning, giving a small smirk to the owner of the noise. You shouldn't have stopped him. Zeus would have caught him if you delayed him any longer. Hera said, giving the Titaness a mild glare. Mom fight? Ares asked, getting a glare from the twins and Hera. No. Aw, boring. Leto's smirk widened by a margin. You're just mad that I gave him a ring before you could've. I am not. Hera frowned. I am not. Hera said, her nose scrunching from her frown's growth. She so is. Poseidon snickered as Hera crossed her arms, her lips a thin line. I suppose you are right, Lady Hera. Leto said, giving a small bow before walking on. Do remember that you cannot monopolize him just because he is your champion. Besides, a gift from his grandmother was far overdue. She's has you there, sister. Hestia commented, almost getting a pouty look from the youngest sister of the original six. Hera scowled, her arms crossing over her chest as she watched the Titaness walk away. Owned. Apollo, so help me. Hera glared at the grinning sun god. Naruto waved goodbye to Nike, walking back into his cabin and giving Will a sly look as he walked out of Bianca's room. What? Hades shouted in fury, Nico glaring at the screen. It was just a checkout. I mean, we just finished a makeup. Shut up, Naruto. Will said, storming out. Player be playin'. Silence, Apollo. Must have been steamy if he's that red. Naruto said as he walked past Bianca's room. There was a squeak before the door slammed shut. Aw, she's all embarrassed. Piper snickered, it was cute to see, to be honest. Naruto chuckled. Good thing Nico moved out. Hard to believe he's my second in command now. Because I'm good like that. Nico grinned, he liked that idea. Second in command, had a nice ring to it. Naruto went to his room, digging through his back pouch and pulling the golden and silver ring out. He flopped back on his bed, Ranger jumping up from the floor to join him. The blonde demigod idly scratched the saber tooth behind the ear as he looked at the ring. I wonder why Grandma Leto gave the ring to me and not any of my older siblings that got married? Because, it's for Talia, duh. Aphrodite rolled her eyes. Talia choked on air. 31 The final chapter. Hestia said softly, getting some groans from the others, they didn't want it to end. Stupid lazy author. And Kurama came to smother the baby with kisses. Naruto said to the baby in his arm, the stuffed nine-tailed fox in his hand coming forward and being gently brushed around Reiko's face. Aw. The goddesses and demigoddesses cooed or smiled at how adorable the scene was. He'd decided to visit his goddaughter, considering he knew her grandmother now on a first-name basis. He smiled as Reiko squealed happily. She really was a happy baby and definitely had her grandmother's eyes. Golden eyes of victory, Frank said, looking into his girlfriend's own molten gold eyes. He glanced at the kitchen where Ayame was showing Talia the secret to Ichiraku ramen, something he would literally kill to know. Learning how to cook your man's favorite meal, oh my. Aphrodite giggled. I'm loving it. Talia's cheeks darkened, but she just huffed and turned her head. So what? It was a nice gesture, that's it. Yep, that's all. He had brought Talia to show her around Konoha, to be more open about his first life as she asked. She wasn't thrilled, but conceded that it was a big part of his life, practically the purpose he lived for prior to learning his father's identity, and agreed to join him. That's sweet of him, right, Talia? Annabeth asked. I guess so, the hunter said to her blonde friend. With a ride from Zephyr, which Naruto admitted hadn't needed to be done, but with Kronos on the loose he couldn't risk using the Hiraishin, they were in Konoha within the hour. Fortunately for them, Naruto had thought ahead and sent an IM to Iruka, shocking the poor man with a message. Hermes snickered, that way always fun to do. After a reassurance that he would explain the method of IM, Naruto had scored a place to stay without constant Anbu supervision in the Umino household while two clones stayed at Naruto's apartment, one disguised as Talia. Unfortunately for him, Ayame had decided that Talia needed to be prepared to feed an Uzumaki, as her father had told her of Naruto's mother after Naruto's last visit and deemed the love for their ramen hereditary. Aphrodite nodded. A smart young lady. This also meant he was to be tortured with the smell of ramen while he entertained his adorable goddaughter. Evil. Dionysus shuddered. If only he could enjoy some while playing with Reiko, life would almost be perfect. Aside from the whole Titan God War thing going on. He wondered what they were talking about. Stupid noodles. Talia said with a scowl as she ditched the latest batch of her attempts with a simple chuck out the window. What if that hit someone? Jason asked. Talia shrugged, so what? Ayame giggled and got a glare from Talia. The daughter of Zeus wouldn't admit it, but this ramen thing, for being a simple dish, was friggin' hard to get right. She'd burn water. Percy joked, getting some laughs as the hunter fumed at him. She would not. Oh, stop. You'll get it. Ayame said with a smile. Damn right I'll get it, Talia said. There's that determination, Nico said, sounding mockingly chipper. She grabbed another bag of flour and an egg. Stupid Whiskers, why can't he like something normal like pancakes or burgers? Always the burgers. Damn right. Talia nodded and Hera glared at her for enjoying the slaughter of her sacred animal. What's normal to you is abnormal to me, Ayame said. She watched Talia break the egg and grab the bowl before she could stir it. You're breaking the egg wrong. How? Talia asked. It's how you break it. The motion is good, but the force, you're far too angry. Ayame said. Have you met Talia? Percy asked with a raised brow, but got punched. Ow. Shut it, Jackson. Talia said as she sat back in her seat, crossing her arms and fuming. That's from my dad. Talia said. Not my fault. Zeus frowned at that while his family snickered at him. Traitors. Talia just nodded, it was true. Yes it is. Ayame said. When you cook, you focus on what you're doing too much. I didn't think it was possible, but you have too much determination. You're not putting any heart in it. Precisely. Oh, like you knew that. Artemis rolled her eyes at her rival goddess. That sounds like something Cabin 10 would say. Naruto said from the doorway. See? Your nephew agrees. Aphrodite nodded and Piper did too, her cabin would say that. Any ramen ye hey. Out, out, out. Ayame said, pushing the taller teen out of the kitchen. Play with your goddaughter. And how many times must I tell you, no jutsu in my house? That was the first time. The clone said. He exploded in a cloud of smoke after she bopped him on the head. Ayame gave the real, and rather sheepish looking, Naruto a stern look before retreating back into the kitchen. Scary MILF. Leo got a sharp look from Piper. What? She is. I don't understand. How do you put heart into breaking an egg? Talia asked. Well, it's like breaking hearts you see. Mom, stop. Fine. The love goddess pouted with crossed arms. Well, I used to think of how happy the customers were when they ate my father's ramen. Ayame said, looking off at nothing specifically. A smile crossed her face. And then I met Iruka-kun. My ramen got even better, and my father told me his secret. He would think of my mother's smile. Aphrodite's heart melted at that, it was beautiful. I don't get it. Talia said. Of course not. The love goddess sighed in disappointment. Ayame rolled her eyes. I want you to think of the brightest smile you've ever seen on Naruto's face. Well, that might be hard. Apollo gave his own bright smile. Then, once it's in your mind, break the egg. Whatever you say, egg whisperer, Talia said. She looked back at the bowl of flour set in front of her. She grabbed the egg and closed her eyes, thinking back. There was the night in Naruto's apartment. Talia turned a bit red. Talia groaned at the reminder of her, after dark action. Leo catcalled, getting an elbow and a glare from Jason. That wasn't a bright smile, well it was, but not the right smile. She continued to think back and her mind landed on the last New Year's celebration. Before they retreated to Cabin 1, Naruto had wished her a happy new year, not with his largest smile, but certainly his brightest. New Year's. Several of the gods smiled, that was their day all right. This thought in mind, Talia cracked the egg and dropped it into the flour. She stirred the mix until it solidified. She dumped the dough onto the table and began kneading it. Minutes passed by and Talia continued until she had thick, curly strands of noodles. Ayame pulled a bowl of miso soup, which she had shown to Talia how to make before, over and had Talia put the noodles within it. They stirred and added extra meats. Wow, classy chef Talia with just a smile on the mind. Annabeth whistled, getting a wine from her friend. A few more minutes later and Naruto, with Reiko in his arms, was seated at a table. A bowl of ramen was set before him. Ayame took her daughter from him and Naruto looked at Talia. The punk daughter of Zeus was watching from the doorway, her arms crossed over her chest while electric blue eyes watched on intently. You better damn like it, you got it. Apollo said in Talia's voice, getting the hunter to glare at him, only to get the god to grin in return. Naruto let a smile break across his face. Shut up, Whiskers. Talia said, her cheeks turning pink. Yeah, you just know what he's thinking. The sun god snickered. That he's damn lucky, that's what. Talia huffed with crossed arms. I didn't say anything, Leah-chan, Naruto said. Just eat the damn noodles, she said, her eyes turning away while her cheeks darkened a bit. She is so tsundere. Aphrodite rolled her eyes, but was grinning ear to ear. Talia frowned, she hated that word. Naruto chuckled and picked up his chopsticks, breaking them apart as soon as he had. He took a strand of noodles and spun them around before putting them in his mouth. A second later and he moaned in mid-bite. Eat seriously, Naruto. Talia became a bit miffed at his exaggerations. Oh, he's just trying to make your first attempt feel accomplished, Demeter said, giving a small laugh. It was cute. It's that good, though. Naruto said, smiling at her before he dove back into the bowl of ramen. When he was finished, Naruto leaned back, his chopsticks set in the bowl and his arm draped behind the back of the chair. He patted his stomach and smiled. That was the best ramen I've ever eaten. No offense, Ayame Nichan. The best, huh? Piper asked Talia with a smirk. McLean, don't even think it. I'll try not to. None taken. Ayame said with a tittering giggle as she walked off to feed Reiko. Damn right it's the best you've ever had. Talia said with a huff. Only Talia. Nico grinned as Talia glared at him. Naruto stood up and walked over to her, putting his hands on her hips and leaning his forehead against hers, his grin still on his face. The proximity had her cheeks heating up. What? Sexy ramen time? Apollo? Artemis glared at her brother. That was ridiculous. My Kaken was right. You are a keeper. Naruto said, giving her a peck on the lips. I doubt it, Hera huffed. Thanks for the ramen, Leah-chan. Talia averted her eyes, the ghost of a smile on her face. Whatever, Whiskers. She likes it. Hazel giggled. When you act all shy like that it just makes me want to kiss you more. Naruto said, tilting her head up and kissing her again. This time it wasn't just a peck and Talia didn't shy away. Not that she should. The Lady of Doves nodded. Ahem. The two broke their kiss and looked at the mother breastfeeding her child. Awkward tilde. Hermes sung. Or is it? Apollo grinned, breaking into a laugh with his brother. Artemis glared at her twin. Apollo. Ayame had a very amused look on her face. They turned away, giving her some privacy. Talia had a red face, while Naruto was just grinning away. Not at Ayame breastfeeding, but at his girlfriend's embarrassment. Jerk. Talia pouted. Naruto poked Talia's side playfully, getting a jolt in return. Naruto rubbed his side with a groan. Hey! I'm not ready for shock play yet. Talia lit up like a Christmas tree while the others burst out into laughter. Talia responded to that by stomping on his foot. I would. So worth it. Boy's got a point. Hermes snickered. Kushina was having an interesting day on the mountainside palace of the gods. Persephone had given her the afternoon off, considering she was stuck with her mother. Finding gratitude in that, Kushina let herself wander around Olympus. That's nice of her. Demeter smiled at her daughter's kindness. She stopped to catch the latest gossip from some nymphs, all of who commented on how unlucky she was. Wondering what the immortal spirits had meant, she inquired, only getting amused laughs. Apollo frowned. Hey! What? It is true. Hera sniffed. I feel sorry for her. But still, it would be nice to have another to speak to about such matters. Perhaps her other would take Kushina to brunch sometime. Taking a wild guess, Kushina decided to go pay a certain blue-eyed idiot a visit and prove the spirits wrong. Yay! The sun god cheered. Apollo's temple was gleaming as it were expected to, a shrine to her husband's ego that had her shaking her head in exasperation. My temple rocks. The god of medicine pouted. She looked up at the golden doors that were so blindingly bright that her purple eyes squinted before pushing them open. If anything it got brighter, a lot brighter. Kushina had to hold her hand up to shield her eyes as she entered. The door closed behind her and there was some strumming that melted her heart. I try. Apollo puffed up his chest and dusted off his shoulders. It suddenly stopped and she heard Apollo mumble to himself. With the stealth she had obtained through her career as a kunoichi, Kushina was able to slip up behind the young-looking man that was hunched over a desk, an acoustic guitar in his lap while he wrote on a sheet of paper. G minor here. Apollo hummed to himself and turned the pencil in his hand around, erasing the mark he made. Not a flat, a sharp. Artemis rested her cheek in her palm. At least he's doing something productive instead of directing porn. Oh, that was one time. Let it go. I beg to differ. Hermes smirked at his brother, getting a nervous shush from the sun god. Boo, Kushina said. She smirked as Apollo let out a rather unmanly shriek. The gods laughed at Apollo while the blonde god's cheeks burned. Stupid sexy ninja wife, making him look bad. Damn, why did she have to be so sexy? While the god of the sun was trying to stop his beating whatever gods had, Kushina looked over the papers on the desk. Must be easier to write than making seals. No wonder your handwriting was so much better than mine, girly boy. I love that name for you. Ares grinned. Whatever, Leatherhead. I am not girly. Apollo said indignantly. Well, you are always welcomed in my hunt, my girly brother. Artemis teased him. Really? Apollo asked hopefully. No. The moon goddess gave him a flat glare. He shone for a moment before he had regained the face she had fallen for many years ago and gave her a smirk. I'm just prettier than you. And couch for you, Ares said. Even he knew never to say that. Oh, screw off, jarhead. I still don't know if I should be insulted by that or not, Kushina said. She leaned back and crossed her arms over her chest. So, what was with the other face? Apollo shrugged. I get bored. I like to switch it up every now and then. Artemis snorted at that. I do. The sun god huffed, maybe you should do it again so you don't look so girly. I'm not girly. You are so girly. Even your wife calls you out on it. Hermes pointed out. Herm, zip it. Humph, see if I ever compliment you again. Apollo stuck his chin in the air and spun his chair around. Kushina draped herself over his shoulders, giving him a playful pout. Never compliment my eyes again? She asked. They are a nice shade. Dionysus admitted they were a wonderful color of violet. Nope. Or are my lips? Not happening. Not even my hair? Ooh, some god said, since that was the clincher. It was how they got together if memory served. Apollo bit on his lip a bit. He did like Kushina's hair. It was an alluring shade of red he had never seen on anyone else. Sure, he's had his share of redheads, but Kushina's hair was like rubies come to life. Blood rubies, Hades said. He saw the connection. It demanded his attention, and things that got his attention never stopped getting his attention. The attention span of a squirrel. Artemis rolled her eyes, maybe. Damn inability to lie. Judging by the smile on Kushina's face, he knew that she knew that he was cursing his hindrance. It was usually why he couldn't win an argument with her back when he was mortal. Schooled by a mortal, how sad. Ares gleefully mocked Apollo, who glared at him. Resigning to his fate, Apollo looked at his wife with a smile. Not that I'm not happy you're here, Kushi-chan, but why are you here? Kushina huffed and went limp, literally hanging over his shoulders. A bunch of nymphs were pitying me for being married to you. Ah, they're just jealous that you married me. Apollo smirked at his wife. I mean, who wouldn't want to marry me? A lot of people, Hermes said and looked at his phone to double check. A lot. Apollo frowned at that. Why? Need I honestly say? Your mother, sister and aunt? True, and true. Artemis counted off her fingers with a grin, touché. Apollo turned around and pulled Kushina to sit on his lap with a grin on his face. But then again, Arte is my lil sis, and mom, well she's mom. The only one I did want to marry was Annie Hestia and I'm so over her. Hestia nodded to this. And Daphne? Kushina asked, arching a brow. I got that damn arrow removed a few centuries ago, Apollo said. He sighed. Won't lie though, she was a pretty nymph. I hear you. Dionysus sighed, remembering his own nymph he chased. Oh, why did she have to be so pretty? Poor Apollo, heartbroken at the ripe old age of, how old were you when that happened again? Kushina asked with a smirk. That would be telling. Apollo poked her nose. And while I can't lie, I won't tell you how old I am. I already feel like a cradle robber enough as it is. Don't we all? Demeter asked, getting her family to shift a bit. Stole my heart when I was only 10, Kushina said, making him chuckle sheepishly. Let's keep that between ourselves, Apollo said. The last thing I need is Arte having a good reason to shoot an arrow between my ears. I mean, sure I'll heal, but the pain. Artemis glared at her twin. Oh, that is not my fault. Mortal body. Apollo said in his own defense. And the last thing you need is pain, Kushina said. She looked over at the large wall of pictures and smiled. You know, if there's any more pictures added to that wall I will castrate you. Again. I must go hunting with her sometime, oh the stories to be told. Artemis grinned widely. Arte. Apollo swallowed. Yes, I know. You made that quite clear. A few months after her resurrection, Kushina had learned through a reliable source that Apollo was working his moves on a girl, but before the deal was sold she appeared in a blaze of hellfire. What had followed included the worst pain imaginable that Apollo had ever dealt with. Even more than anything he had felt during the Gigantomachy. Apollo swore on the sticks that he would never put himself through that sort of pain ever again. Please tell me we get to see that? Ares asked while Hermes laughed loud and hard, holding his sides. Kushina got up from her seat and went over to the wall, grabbing a few of the pictures on the bottom row. Who are they? My youngest batch. Apollo got up and went to her side, gently taking one to look at. It was a young girl with dark skin and she had blue eyes much like his. This is Lyric. What is with you and names like that for your kids? The demigods turned just in time to see Apollo shrug at his sister's question. It's how I roll. She's 6 right now. Her birthday was a few months ago. She's cute, Kushina said with a smile. What's her mother do? Dances. Kushina closed her eyes and took a deep breath before looking at her husband expectantly. Ballet or exotic? Oh, come on. Well, there was that one that Hermes, shut it. The sun god whined as his twin glared at him with crossed arms. Ballet, Apollo said, smiling lightly as he hung the picture back up. They're the last. I promise. Hera scoffed at that, she doubted it. Well, maybe with other women. Kushina looked at the other pictures in her hand. Hinted he, hint hint. Apollo grinned widely. Who's this one? Richard Grayson. Apollo grinned proudly at the name. Robin, really? Leo asked. I had to. It's also the name of a writer and composer. Apollo declared proudly. His mom's a librarian. Sexy librarian? Hermes asked, getting a glare from Athena. Yes. Apollo nodded, ignoring the glare he got, too. Really? You still read? Kushina smirked at him. Funny. Apollo took the photo of the blonde boy and hung it back up. He looked at the last one in Kushina's hand. That's the youngest of them all. Liam Antiman. I met his mom at a college party about 6 years back, a few months after Lyric's mom gave birth. I won't lie, they're adorable children. I wouldn't have minded if they were mine, Kushina said, making Apollo beam. She hung the photo back up and looked up a few rows before grabbing the photo she adored the most. Though I wouldn't trade anything for this one. No mother would for their own. Hera smiled. Hephaestus scoffed at her words. Apollo laughed and smiled at the picture of Naruto sleeping in his penthouse bed, sprawled out with his mouth wide open. He's got your temper. You wish. Kushina snorted in amusement. Demigods tend to get their parents' temperament. Athena noted soundly. My condolences, son. Poseidon told Percy as Annabeth flushed and Athena glared at her rival. How's he holding up? Apollo asked. Since, you know? Not as well as he makes it seem. He's trying to be brave for everyone, Kushina said. She traced Naruto's face and smiled sadly. I remember the first time I saw him. It's hard to forget it. Apollo wrapped his arm around her shoulders. They had both died for Naruto, impaled through the back by the 9-tailed fox's claw as it tried to kill their newborn son. The moment Apollo got that memory back, he locked himself away in his temple and stayed there for a day. Thank goodness it was a stormy day then, otherwise Zeus would have come demanding why he was shirking his duties. I would. Zeus nodded. I knew he was going to be special, Kushina said with a small smile. I wish I had seen him, before he had grown up. We always watch from a distance, Hermes said in a wistful tone. Apollo put his other hand on the frame and it shifted, like a book turning the pages back until it landed on the oldest photograph of Naruto that existed in the world. As the god of the arts, he had a small control over photography and could make copies of any picture that existed in the world. The image showed a 4-year-old Naruto in a white shirt and black shorts standing in front of the Hokage monument. Next to him an elderly man with red and white robes had his hand on Naruto's head. Aw! The women cooed at little Naruto. He's adorable. Aphrodite said with a squeal. Yeah, I'm awesome. Apollo said, brushing his fingers on his chest. That's the oldest picture I have, Apollo said softly. He's adorable, Kushina said breathlessly. Tears built up in Kushina's eyes as a slideshow began. She watched Naruto age before her eyes, cooing over his childish cuteness between ages 4 and 10, beaming in pride at him sitting next to 18 empty ramen bowls with a sobbing Iruka in the background. That poor man, Hazel said. Laughing at his first graduate Janan photo where he had painted his hands and face white with red lines over it. Someone got into the paint, Artemis said with a pointed look to Apollo. Hey, body art caught on. Not my fault. Then it was a photo of Naruto glaring at the annoyed Sasuke. Between them was a smiling Sakura and behind them, his hands on either of the boys' heads, was Kakashi. Simpler times, Annabeth said, knowing the feeling. The next photo included a white-haired man with red lines coming down from under each of his eyes, Tsunade and Shizune standing behind a grinning Naruto holding up a bandaged fist at the camera. Leo drooled over Tsunade. Man, just look at those things. Another picture showed Naruto in a hospital bed with a beautiful woman kissing his cheek. Scrawled on it in red ink was "Get better soon, hero of spring, Yuki." "That's my boy." Apollo whistled. Leo crossed his arms and grumbled, "The lucky bastard." The photo after that was Naruto and the same white-haired man, only Naruto looked like he was probably 14. They continued, showing Naruto up until he was taken from Konoha. Then the next one that appeared was one of Naruto, another blonde boy, a younger Taliah and a much younger Annabeth all crammed into a small box making faces at the camera. Taliah and Annabeth had soft smiles on their faces as they saw the image. Parts of them just wishing things could have been different. The next picture showed Naruto post-revival, sitting in a small restaurant with a green-eyed blonde hanging onto his arm. "What?" Taliah asked. Annabeth grinned. "Ooh, seems someone got distracted." "Shut up, Annie." "Who's that?" Kushina asked, arching a brow. Naruto's first girlfriend, or would she technically be the second? Apollo tapped his chin in thought before shrugging it off. Anyway, she was a girl Naruto met at a coffee shop. They had a cute relationship for about 3 months before he had to leave. A Cyclops found him. "Why Cyclops?" Percy sighed. "Why couldn't they be more like Tyson?" "At least he's happy now," Kushina said. Hopefully he gave her a good reason. "Yeah, good," Apollo said with a nervous laugh. His wife, so surreal to think that about any woman, turned to give him a glare and Apollo swallowed. "He may have left with a note? So like you." Artemis frowned. Why did the one good one have to end up like his father, or at least get his annoying traits? "I'm going to ground him." "How was he supposed to cover up a monster attack?" Apollo asked. "He couldn't use the mist all that well, then. He should have let her think he was crazy." "That's always fun." Dionysus snickered. "Well, being the god of medicine, I don't want to tell you this, but..." "Oh, no." "Yeah." Apollo scratched the back of his neck. "I talked with Dee about it and, well, it seems Naruto is legitimately insane." "Knew it," Percy said with a grin, "he just knew it." Taliah palmed her face. Great, her other was dating a nutcase. "Post-traumatic? Recognized it, huh?" "Most common for any soldier." Ares nodded. "It was a terrible thing even to him. To never be able to go back on the battlefield, the horror." "I figured." Kushina swiped the picture and it returned to the end, back to the picture of Naruto sleeping in bed. When he woke up that night, it was like looking at some of the unfortunate shinobi after the Third War. "Like Hatake," Apollo said. He sighed. "Poor Obito, I haven't thought about him or Rin in years. And Rin was gorgeous as a teen." "Your own student?" Athena frowned. "If she was hot, she was hot." The sun god shrugged. Kushina elbowed him in the side before she hung the picture of Naruto back up. She hugged her arms with a frown for a moment before beaming. "I know that look. That's the look that got us gate guarding for a month when you stuffed rotten fish in the shopkeeper's bed and took credit for it," Apollo said. "Loving her." Hermes smiled impishly. "Let's go visit Konoha." Kushina grinned at him. "It'll be fun. Pop in, scare a few civilians, give Tsunade a heart attack." Hermes glared at Apollo. "Lucky bastard." "I try." The sun god folded his arms behind his head, looking just as smug as he sounded. "I don't know. I thought you were the fun twin?" "I am." Apollo proclaimed as his twin glared at him. "She was fun, too." "I am. I just might be in a bit of hot water with Zeus." Apollo scratched the back of his neck nervously. "You know what with our son dating his daughter?" Zeus glared at Apollo. Hey, as much as I would love to have an awesome kid like that, other me. So just because they had sex once he's mad at you?" Kushina rolled her eyes. "Please, you and I did it all the time. Like that time we did it on Hiruzen's gossip." Aphrodite clapped her hands with an eager giggle. "Shh," Apollo had a finger to his lips and looked around worriedly. "If Aphrodite finds out I ever did something like that, no one will trust me in their temple ever again." "Like a certain someone," Athena said, glaring at her rival. "Oh, let it go." "Never. And here I thought I held the grudges," Hades said with a quirked lip. "Really?" Kushina predatorily smirked at him. "Yes. It'll be like Uncle Poseidon and Athena all over again, but with me who's banned from visiting Athens for a few centuries," Apollo said. Athena smirked while Poseidon glared at her for that punishment. "So please, Kushi-chan, don't tell anyone that story." "Well, now that you say not to." "Rookie mistake," Hermes shook his head, getting his older brother to glare at him. Apollo was torn between quivering in fear of the gleam in her eye and smiling at her mischievous side. He decided to go with the third option and just accept her original request. Zeus had nothing on a scary Kushina. Well, there was the Master Bolt, but that was nothing compared to a wife's ability to instill fear in her husband. Amen, said the married men, none more than Zeus. His head hung in defeat. Apollo sighed before righting himself and beaming a grin at his wife. All right, let's go. I knew you'd see it my way, Kushina said, wrapping her arms around his. For someone one as hot as her, I would. Apollo admitted with zero shame. Whiskers, take the blindfold off my face, damn it. Talia's eyes crackled and the fabric started to burn. Oh my. Aphrodite giggled while Talia choked on air. Naruto decided he wanted to walk around the village, showing Talia his favorite places to hang out. And in public. Aphrodite. Artemis frowned at the giggling goddess. She met two off-duty Chunin, and Talia was rather proud that she got the name of the rank right, named Kotetsu and Izumo. They were a rather lively bunch, glad to see their lil buddy was alive and well with a pretty new friend, getting a protective glare from Naruto. They were sad he wasn't a Konohan shinobi anymore, but were relieved when he said he was a ranking officer in the alliance. After that meeting, Naruto convinced Talia to let him surprise her with something. Bondage. Aphrodite. Zeus frowned, not pleased at her words, and got an eye roll from the goddess of love. Hey! No peeking, Leah-chan, Naruto said. He squeezed Talia's hand and she knew he smiled at her, despite the fact she couldn't see it. Talia followed her boyfriend's instructions, her hand squeezing back around his as he led her up some stairs. They climbed for a long time and Talia felt her gut twisting and churning. Abort, abort. Percy cried out and got a growl from his hunter cousin. How far up are we? Talia asked. She cursed herself for the light stutter, but being unable to see while feeling the pull of gravity on her body. You should hold his arm, dear, the love goddess advised, getting a glare from the hunter. Trust me, Leah-chan. I won't let you fall, Naruto said. He continued to lead her up the steps, her grip tightening the further they went up. Finally, Naruto came to a stop, his hand still holding hers tightly. Okay, you can take it off now. Talia took her blindfold off and regretted it. Are we on top of the mountain? He's so going to push you off, Nico said humorously. Teach her to fly, no doubt. Jason nodded. Jason. His sister glowered at his words. Yes, Naruto said. He turned to Leah to look at him, his hands on her shoulders firmly to keep her from bolting. Leah-chan, I didn't bring you up here to have you try and fly or something. Aw. The son of the sky frowned, that would have been nice. His other would have been able to fly with his sister. Talia on the other hand looked thankful. I just want you to look at the village. Why? Talia asked. Naruto gave her a small smile and she sighed. Talia took a deep breath, planning to sock Naruto hard if she puked, do it on him. Ares chuckled at the thought. And turned to look at the village. Instead of an overwhelming feeling of fear and height, Talia looked out at every building to the walls that surrounded it and her mouth gaped just a little. I think I know why. It is a beautiful sight. Athena had a soft smile on her face. Her daughter was in awe at the image before them. I want to go there. Annabeth pouted jealously. All that oriental architecture. This is why I became a shinobi, Naruto said, standing next to her and putting his hand around hers again. His jaw clenched for a moment before relaxing. My surrogate grandfather, the Sandaime Hokage, he brought me up here all the time when I was little. Because I hated everyone in the village, just as they hated me. Wow. Percy blinked, he didn't see that coming. Neither did the others. Apollo crossed his arms and frowned. Talia gave a start at that, looking at her boyfriend in surprise. What? I didn't know who I was, why I was hated, or why I existed, Naruto said. How sad. Hestia frowned at hearing this. He took a deep breath and smiled serenely. But then Gigi, that is, the Sandaime, brought me up here to overlook the village. Naruto looked at Talia, his smile still plastered on his face. He told me I had to be stronger than the villagers, to overcome my hatred. Boo. Ares jeered, stupid old mortal. Hate was good. He said it is the duty of Konoha to spread the will of fire, and that includes everyone in it, shinobi or not. Hating the rest of the village would hinder that duty, and as much as I hated the people, I never hated the village itself. What's the will of fire? Talia asked. It's the belief that through bonds, peace will sprout anew, Naruto said with a smirk. Hestia smiled warmly at that while Ares made a gagging noise, though he swiftly shut up at the glare he got from his peaceful aunt. Love being the key to peace, as corny as it sounds to you, is one of the things I believe in. I agree wholeheartedly. The love goddess smiled brightly, a giddy look in her eyes. The gods may be real and other religions may be wrong for all we know, but my true loyalty lies to the will of fire and spreading its message. We're about to go into war, Talia said. Naruto's hand squeezed around hers gently and she squeezed back. Yep. Ares grinned wildly. That was a nice, but still very short in his opinion, war. I know, he said. And I know that I may hate Luke now, that I will kill him if need be, but I will forgive him and let him rest when it is all over. That's nice, Hermes said dryly. I will never stop believing in the will of fire. Fire will burn where the leaves dance. The shadow of the fire will light the village and the leaves will sprout again. Naruto smiled as the sun started to set behind them, his shadow casting over a portion of the village. A saying Hokage Gigi used to tell me, that the Hokage was the protector of the leaves from the fires of war. A nice sentiment. Athena nodded as Ares snorted, crossing his arms in clear disagreement. I don't want to live here, Talia. It's a war-driven village. The piece you saw as we walked through it was a mask over an ugly and scarred face. Like Ares, Hermes said. The war god shrugged, he wasn't wrong. But it's still your home. The two demigods turned to see Kushina and Apollo watching them and their hands fell away from each other. Kushina smiled at her son. Sochi, you don't want to admit it, but you still love Konoha. It's okay to be honest with us, Apollo said, grinning at Naruto. I may be the god of truths, but I can keep secrets, too. Some snorted at that, getting a frown from Apollo. Hey! I so can. Re-I-ite, the gods said, disbelief dripping from their lips. Yes. I still love Konoha, Naruto said. He turned and looked back at the village. But I can't be here. Not now. I can't do what Hokage Gigi asked me, not yet. The people of this village don't deserve a Hokage like you, Apollo said. Naruto turned back to face him and he smiled secretly. They never will. As he foresees it. Hermes said in a mystical tone. Damn right I do, the prophecy god said. Talia looked between the three, confused as they all had small smiles on their faces. So what aren't you all saying that's going over my head? I hate being out of the loop. Talia frowned, Annabeth nodding in agreement. That, Talia-chan, is a secret. Naruto said, turning back to look at the village. Talia frowned and started to open her mouth, but was stopped when Kushina threw an arm over her shoulders, startling the daughter of Zeus. Ah, the bonding commences. Piper smirked. Apollo stood beside his son, his hands in his jean pockets while Naruto crossed his arms. The sun's light shone behind them and their shadows encased the whole village from where they stood on the Sandaime's head as the day came to a close. Well, that's all for now. Hestia closed the book with a smile, adoring that ending. So we just wait until the final book? Leo asked as Percy shrugged. Guess so. Lame. Well, see you then, Apollo grinned and gave a wink. Who are you winking at? Artemis asked her twin. Oh, you know. No, that's why I asked. Oh, then trade secret, lil sis, not even I can tell you, unless you know. Which you don't, so I can't. Apollo sighed, but soon smiled and waved. Bye everybody. Mother dropped you on your head, I swear. Artemis muttered.